AEW Revolution 2021 is in the books, and I am still laughing my ass off. Oh my God, at the finish of this pay-per-view. My God, this was a really good show, I thought. Really, overall, it was a really, really solid pay-per-view, but holy shit, did they let us down in the end. I suppose I really shouldn't be complaining about nobody dying and being blown up, but for those of you who watched the pay-per-view and caught the end of the exploding barbed wire death match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega, the ending was pretty goddamn anticlimactic, and it was so bad it was funny. Shit. We're going to talk about it in the chat here. Let me make sure I can be heard. Okay, we're good. I came up kind of in a hurry here, trying to scramble, change the thumbnail, shit like that, to get ready for the show, and I literally cannot stop laughing at the diesel pyro that went off at the end of the match. There was supposed to be there's a 30-minute countdown in these death matches. When you get to the end, if nobody has won, then the explosions go off, and then the match continues after that. So they really were hyping this thing up all night as some really big, huge explosion at the end of the show. And it sucks because the lame-ass, weak little explosion they had really ruined a lot of good stuff, especially at the end with Eddie Kingston coming out and trying to save Moxley, get him out of the ring. And when he realized he couldn't get him out of the ring in time, he covered up to protect him. And it was like it was like Gilbert pyro. I mean, it was so bad. I'm still laughing. So I guess they get a break. I don't know what we were expecting, but when these death matches have been done before in independent, hardcore promotions or in Japan, it's a little bit more of a spectacular display. And what was so strange about this ending is that everything else during the match was pretty good. They had I was worried how they were going to do this without fucking it up. You have to have shit explode, but you have to protect people at the same time. I wasn't sure how it was going to come off, but everything leading up to this I thought was all right. I loved the shot to Moxley's face with the exploding bat. That was cool. A lot of barbed wire, a lot of blood. The explosions that went off around the ring were good. Really nothing wrong with those. It was just that ending part. Like, I thought they botched something. I thought that part of it didn't go off. I thought that something got screwed up or whatever, but apparently that's the way it was supposed to go down, and it just looked a little bit silly with Kingston over top of Moxley like that, when Moxley would have been just fine laying there on his own. So either way, though, I don't think it should take away from the awesomeness of Eddie Kingston, a guy who Moxley's had a brutal feud with this past year. But they also have a lot of history, and his friend coming out to try to save his life type of thing, and make sure that Renee Paquette is not raising their baby alone. I thought that was very cool and very emotional. However, it just like fizzled. It was they blue balled us. It was the funniest fucking thing I think I've ever seen. I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad about that. To me, it just got a huge chuckle out of me because the rest of the pay-per-view was solid. This was a 9-match card or 8-match card, something like that, including the buy-in. And we got some really good wrestling here. The women's matches were good. Great tag team wrestling to open the show. The cinematic match with Sting and Darby Allin was pretty damn awesome and pretty well produced. I thought the ladder match was okay. Nothing special there. And really happy with the outcome of the Battle Royal as well, with Pac and Phoenix winning that. And of course, we also had Paul White's big announcement, the new signee in AEW, which I know you guys have been talking about it in the chat. I'm sure everybody knows who it is by now. And it was kind of leaked earlier on in the day. Most people were under the impression that this would in fact be Christian Cage, and that's who it was. So I have my feelings on that. I'm happy for Christian. I'm happy he's there. If he's getting a nice multi-year deal for a lot of money at age 46 or 47 or whatever he is, good for him. He's another solid guy to have there in the locker room, a great worker. That's kind of his new tagline, like outwork me or something like that. And he's going to be a good person to have there. In a former world champion, caliber, and somebody who should be a Hall of Famer one day. But, it's one of those things where this isn't Christian's fault. Christian coming to AEW alone, in a vacuum is awesome. But when they hype it up and making it sound like it's Brock fucking Lesnar or The Rock, it kind of is a letdown. CLB, remember? Crazy letdown, bro. So I don't know how the fans feel about that. People were kind of mostly like rolling their eyes at it. But if you just kind of take away from AEW's stupid hyping of it, to make it sound like it's going to be some game-changing type of signee. We talked about this all weekend long, that there's only a couple of names that could really be to live up to the type of hype that they're trying to peddle to us. So, Christian coming out, I just wish they wouldn't have made such a big deal about it, because if he would have just shown up tonight, maybe done a run-in or shown up as a surprise, I think it would have done a pretty good job of setting Twitter on fire and really shocking us in a good way. without them hyping it so hard to where they're setting themselves up for a disappointment or a letdown. I said that this weekend, and that's pretty much what they did with that, based on how they were talking about it. But in the end, Christian Cage is now in AEW. A little bit surprising. I was really, really hoping that he would be involved in the Roman Reigns and Edge program on SmackDown heading into WrestleMania, especially if Edge winds up winning the title at WrestleMania. I kind of envision the two of them kind of embracing having that moment together. But, wrestling is also a business. And maybe WWE maybe they didn't want to offer Christian anything substantial, maybe come in, do a deal and wrestle a little bit. And maybe they were just, not going to pay him enough, or maybe creatively he wasn't happy with what they wanted to do with him. Or maybe the Royal Rumble was a one-shot deal, and that's all they had planned for him, and they haven't talked to him since. We haven't seen him on TV. So when I was going through my list of people that I was certain it was not going to be, Christian was on that list. I just thought that he's too close to the situation with his best friend who's just returned to wrestling and now is in the main event of WrestleMania. How are you not involved in that? But, we'll probably find out in the weeks and days and weeks to come what was going on there and what led to this decision behind the scenes. I know a lot of the good wrestling websites will be on the case to figure that out and inform us, but that was the big announcement for tonight too. So, all in all, I'm still giving this pay-per-view a solid grade. I want the grades from you guys. Give me your letter grades, A, B, C, D, or F, or 1 through 10 ranking on the AEW Revolution 2021 for tonight. I thought a lot of it was good. They set up and they've stacked themselves up for a pretty solid Wednesday night coming up here on Dynamite with the big Inner Circle. I was going to say Circle Jerk, but Inner Circle War Council. And we have a TNT title match on Wednesday as well, with Darby Allin defending the title against the winner of the ladder match. So anyway, overall, I'm still okay with this show. Somebody in the chat was like, boy, I feel sorry for somebody who paid $50. I'm not sorry. I would have given him $51. I wouldn't have cared. I still thought it was a really good night of wrestling overall. Just a couple of letdowns here there. Maybe the Christian announcement wasn't as spectacular as we were hoping it would be, and that fucking ending to that barbed wire match cracked me up. Like I said, not even mad. I'm more laughing than anything else. And after that, I need to open up one of these delicious Stone Cold Steve Austin Broken Skull IPAs, because after something like that, I need some alcohol. Holy shit. Cool. Let me read some of these grades flying into the chat here. B, B plus, C, B, 8 out of 10, 7, D, B minus, C, B, C, B minus, B. All right, so a little bit of everything there, but it looks like B is leading the way, and I'm going to go with B too. I'm not going to go with B minus. I'm just going to go with B. Is that such a thing? How does grades work? Is it just B plus or B minus, or can you just have a straight B? I'm going with a straight B. So not a terrible show by any means, but what stopped it from getting an A for me was probably the ending of that barbed wire match. But the rest of it was still good, very brutal, very good stuff, very bloody. Chris Cruz, if you're watching, fuck you in the ass with a barbed wire baseball bat, you prick. I hope you loved all this blood tonight, you asshole. I thought the match was still good at just that spot. And I feel bad for Kenny and Mox, who, sliced their balls open out there, and were bleeding buckets and getting blowed up and shit. And then they have that terrible ass ending to the show. So, yeah. Anyway, we're here to talk about it. We'll be going through the card, from top to bottom here. We'll start with the buy-in and go through the results here match by match. For those of you who are hanging out in the chat, please smash the thumbs up button for me. You got a lot of options tonight on YouTube, so if you're here hanging out with me, I appreciate it, because I'm sure there are about 250 of us all doing live streams right now. So if y'all are with me, I appreciate it. Did the Shockmaster shock tonight's show? No, Mike, he did not. Let me scroll through here and make sure I didn't even see if there was any super chats coming through. There might be. Yeah, here's a couple. Barry, appreciate the $2. Good to see you in here, man. The pyro at the end of the main event was amazing. Oh, wow. It was so great. Man, yeah, Botchamania. Let's get Matthew on the case here. I'm sure he's going to have something to say about that. I put on Twitter a couple hours ago, or a few minutes ago, like when the match started, that I think it would be a cool match to experience live, especially if you were close up. And I was like, I was in the building for the first ever Inferno match, and I was really curious how they were going to pull that off. I would trade that experience to be in the front row for this one, but maybe after that ending, I might be changing my mind on that opinion now. Man, Devlin, you're saying it left a bad taste in your mouth. Yeah, it's like I was saying, I'm not mad. I mean, it was a letdown. It was a little bit silly at the end, but I don't know. I'm not going to let that ruin it. It was still a good show overall. And at least this is going to give something to laugh about. I mean, if anybody is on Twitter right now or on their YouTube channel, they're stark raving mad and they're freaking out and pulling their fucking hair out and yelling and screaming about what a ridiculous spot that was. I just think they're just overall angry people. I think it was more funny, like I said, than anything else. And let's just have fun with it. This is something we can poke fun at for years. This is going to be very memeable. This is something that we're going to be bringing up a lot, I'm sure, in terms of just they didn't shoot their load very hard at the end, you know what I mean? So whatever, it was all right. I'm not too pissed off about it. Super Fluffy Toaster, appreciate the 3 from you. The ending is one for the Botchamania Hall of Fame. That it is. And Devlin says that it was lame. It was definitely a lame finish. Pay-per-view itself, not lame. Finish, extremely lame. And again, which sucks because Kenny and Mox worked their ass off, and I loved the story of Eddie coming out there and protecting Mox. That was fantastic. But and think about it, like just imagine the finish, the explosions would have been more spectacular. Imagine if it would have been more, and it really looked like Moxley was killed off, because he had that promo on Dynamite a couple weeks ago, felt like a goodbye. We know Renee is pregnant. He might be taking some time off. What better way to write someone off of TV than to blow him up? So I thought they were going to do like a death angle at the end with Moxley, being exploded or whatever, or maybe he survives, but he's just, off TV for a long time. If he can't come back from the Gilbert sparklers, then I don't know how tough Mox really is. So, AEW, though, they might try to rectify this. WWE is somebody that would probably just run with it. Maybe AEW does something, where Mox comes back out and they do another angle to kind of get him out of there. I don't know if they're going to try to call an audible here, or maybe make a couple of changes creatively for what they had planned going forward just to kind of make up for what happened, or if they're just going to say, fuck it, and that's the way it was. Don't know. Either way, though, they gave us, I guess, 4 hours of wrestling tonight and a really good show. Aside from that part. Anyway, we got some more grades coming in here. We got another D, got some C pluses. A B average. Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with all these things. I want to thank Joshua Aparicio. Appreciate the $5 from you, man. Yeah, I saw that part. That was good stuff. Brian Cage carrying Darby in a suplex position, walking up the stairs. It's a good thing that Darby's only $130, because that would be really hard to do. The definition of I'd pay to see that. And yeah, now Brian's brother Christian is in the company too. Maybe he'll join Team Taz. Maybe we can get Brian Cage and Christian Cage to take on Adam Page and Ethan Page. Cage and Cage versus Page and Page. What do you think? Be a good headliner. Spectre, appreciate the $1.99. Great show. Shitty ending. At least collapse the ring, right? Yeah, I mean, at least do something. Yeah, the implosion of the ring would have been cool if they would have configured that to implode at the same time everything was exploding. That would have looked great, especially if they found a way to like bury Mox or bury Eddie. Because if this would have been pulled off correctly, imagine the promo that Kingston could have come out and cut, or when he came back, if Mox is gone and and Kingston could come out there all burned, maybe with some bandages on him, and I protected my friend or whatever, and he's now he's kind of going after Kenny and Good Brothers for what they did to Moxley or something. I think it could be very dramatic if this whole ending would have been pulled off better than it was. But can't take away from the work in there. It was just, come on, AEW, did everything right. You did most everything right up until that point, and then shit the bed at the end. Devlin's back with 5 more. If AEW was smart, they would claim Omega trolled Moxley in Kingston. That's a good idea. He could come out there and be like, I'm the AEW champion. Because they made a big deal about how Callis and Omega spent lots of sleepless nights designing this. So if they're the ones that designed this, you're essentially building a bomb. And if you blow someone up, you're a terrorist. I'm sorry. So maybe they can come out now and say, hey, I'm the AEW champion. I ain't trying to do life in prison. I'm shocked to think that you guys thought I was. I would have never blown anybody up. My only concern is getting rid of Moxley and retaining this gold over my shoulder. That might have to be the direction they're going in, where they're going to claim that they never intended for any sort of major explosion, because if they do that, it's a lose-lose situation. If Kenny's in there, he dies, and if Moxley's in there, he dies, and Kenny goes to jail. So maybe that could be an explanation, perhaps, but it's going to be tough to make that work because the announcers sold it. The announcers, if the announcers would have said, oh, thank God the explosion wasn't that bad, If they would have done that, but there's, no, you can't think that this is obviously a botch. So it would have been hard for them to do that and make that call creatively on their own without permission. You know what I mean? So the way the announcers sold it is going to make it hard to maybe pull something like that off. But that is an idea that does make a tiny bit of sense. So I'd be into that, Devlin, if they did it. Mac Gooley, thank you, man, for the $5 as well. Just got done streaming the show with my buddies. We gave it 8 out of 10s. I don't know why smarts always complain, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, this show by any means was not perfect, but it was still really good. All I want out of a pay-per-view is just a fun-ass night of wrestling. That's what it gave me. So, not a ton of complaints out of Mr. Mike Work over here. Mab, appreciate the 5 from you. WWE will inevitably take a shot at the ending on Raw, and they should, because if WWE did something fucking stupid like this, AEW would poke fun at them. It's all part of the fun. So I think WWE should absolutely do some sort of a little spoof on that. That would be funny. Your bet is, how do you see them doing it? Your bet is Miz pyro issues. Miz being involved would be great because he's already hated as it is. But I don't know if he's going to be much in a joking mood after losing the title. They might have to do it some other way. Or WWE, I don't think is going to go out of their way to do too big of a spoof of it. I think with them, it's probably just going to be something mentioned on commentary, some little innuendo or something that Corey Graves will say. Something like that is more WWE style than actually going out of their way to like book or write a segment to make fun of it. Victor, this is your first pay-per-view, AEW pay-per-view you ordered. Awesome. I hope you liked it. I've ordered every single one on BR Live, and I've enjoyed them. Devlin Husband with 10 more from you. Thanks, man. Brian Cage and Christian Cage versus Adam Page and Ethan Page in a steel cage match with Diamond Dallas Page as a special referee. Book that for All Out in May. That is absolutely your main event. Let's make it a tornado tag or something even better to have all those cages and pages and pages in there whooping each other's ass. Maybe we can have Kenny the Page from 30 Rock show up there too. And Paige, maybe Paige can come in. And she can be the special female referee or something. I don't know. The special enforcer on the outside of the ring. Yeah, so let's do Brian Cage and Christian Cage versus Adam Page and Ethan Page with Diamond Dallas Page as a special referee and Page as the special enforcer on the outside. That's what we should do. Martin, appreciate the 5 from you. Hey, Greg, look at the video of Moxley I've linked on your Twitter. He spoke after cameras went off. Well, I don't want to watch that while I'm trying to stream here. But was he saying a little goodbye to people? He might be. I didn't realize that Renee was that far along, but I kind of thought that if he was going to leave, it would be really close to the end of her pregnancy so he can kind of be home with the new family for a bit. Don't know what the plans are for Mox, but it does sound like we might not see him for a bit, which is fine because, he's given us a hell of a year and a half since his time in AEW. Spectre, appreciate the 5 from you as well. Kingston turns face, feels so right after his program with Mox. I'm sure Omega and Kingston will have a good feud. Yeah, and I think Omega needs to kind of survive a few guys for a while because the person that I think is going to beat him for that title is Adam Page, is Hangman. And he had a good outing tonight, big victory over Matt Hardy, and he's really getting over. He cracks me up. I think he's kind of he's a good talker. He's got a good character. It's evolved since he came in. He's come so far since that inaugural AEW title match against Chris Jericho back when AEW started, that I think he will be the one maybe to inevitably take the belt off of Kenny, but maybe not for a while. Maybe that does kind of sound like an all-out match to me, but I'm hoping they can even stretch it further. And that would tie up a lot of loose ends there because there was a lot of history with Omega and Page and the Elite and everything they were doing last year with the tension and everything. So really good full circle moment if it turns out to be that. And that's kind of where I feel like it's headed. Although with a lot of these, new names and stuff coming in, we got Big Show there now and fucking Christian and, and Miro looked very impressive tonight as well. Would love to see him be a little bit more prominent member on the roster and an actual title contender. And I'm smelling a massive swerve coming to us on Monday with the Inner Circle, which I'll talk about here in a minute because Jericho and MJF opened up the show with the Bucks. Let me see. Did I miss any other ones? All right, I think that's it for now. And good to see a solid audience in here. So like I said, please smash that thumbs up button for me. I'd really appreciate it. And we'll start getting into the results here match by match. We have an awful lot to get into. I thought there was going to be 2 matches on the buy-in, but there was only one. And that was the women's match with Britt Baker and supposedly Rebel taking on Riho and Thunder Rosa. But they announced prior to the match when Britt Baker came out there that Rebel or Reba wasn't going to be able to be medically cleared. She was on a crutch. She's faking the injury, of course, because she got busted just walking around normal. But she's not medically cleared, so she was going to be replaced by the returning Maki Ito, who is back, sang a big song, American Idol style, and everybody just adores her. My girlfriend was in the room. She's like, she is adorable. And she's appeared on AEW a couple of times before. So she's going to be the partner of Britt Baker, and the women had a pretty fun match in there. She's, Ito has a lot of fun in there, with the crying and the stepping on the toes and all of that. She's very animated. One thing she is not good at, though, is near falls. Holy shit. Every time somebody went for the pin on her, she just didn't kick out. Referee basically just had to stop the count, and then finally she kind of moved at the end. So needs a little work there. But otherwise, she's a very fun-loving person, and I loved her funny-ass diving headbutt that she does. During the match, she missed one, but then hit one later on Thunder Rosa right to the abdomen. The finish in that match saw Rebel, who was on the outside of the ring with her crutch because she's injured, and she smacks Thunder Rosa right in the face, and Britt Baker wound up pinning her for the win. So I did get that match wrong in my predictions, but technically, it ain't even the match that I predicted because it was supposed to be Baker and Rebel. So had I known that they were going to replace her, I might have changed my pick. So technically I got that one wrong, but not really. But that's all we saw on the buy-in. Other than that, it was just hype packages for the matches and running through the cards and things like that. Looks like they had, I think the reports are they had around 1,500 fans in attendance there, and it was awesome when the show started because you can hear them. I'm like, oh, fans. I was like, I still don't think we're quite there yet, and I don't know how responsible it is to be doing big public gatherings and shit, no matter what you're doing with masks or social distancing or whatnot, but we're getting close to this being a reality again, and this was a little bit of a taste of it, and it just felt good just to hear a non-digital crowd effect, like a human out of people's actual voice boxes sound effects there, which is just so nice. And it's been a year, of this bullshit. So it was kind of just nice to see and hear the audience there, even though we get a small audience on a lot of the TVs now for AEW. This felt a little bigger, and I liked it. But anyway, that was it for the buy-in. We'll get into the main card here. Let me just go back over here to make sure I got all my screens pulled up. So, main card, the show opening match here was the Young Bucks defending the AEW Tag Team titles against Chris Jericho and MJF. New attire for MJF. I haven't seen him wear this blue shit that he's got on. Just blue trunks now, but he's got this funny looking robe thing or whatever that he's wearing. Looked pretty good. Wardlow escorted them to the ring, so he was going to be at ringside for this. This was a super fun match, and I thought they did a really good thing here by having this match open up. Now, one of my big critiques about this little mini program here is that I don't think the Young Bucks are as mad as they should be about what these guys did to their dad, especially last week when, I know they ended with a brawl and everything, but it was like first they were just getting on the mic and cutting a promo. I'm like, shouldn't you be pissed? Shouldn't you be out there with a weapon, a tire iron, a chainsaw, something, and just rip these guys' fucking heads off for what they did to your dad? You're gonna cut a promo? And so, I needed more aggression out of them. The Bucks they suck at that. They're not good at like really seeming mad or pissed off like they're out for blood. They don't, even when they're most mad, they don't seem mad. It's just something they're not good at. But they're good at a lot of other things. So nobody's perfect. Like I said, great tag team offense here, all the typical Buck moves and things like that. There was one spot in the match where Matt hit just an awesome destroyer on MJF, and it was all MJF making this thing work. I mean, he took it like an absolute champ. Loved that. And probably my favorite spot of the night was when MJF is like showboating. So Matt Jackson picks up MJF for the Meltzer driver. And as Nick goes to do the leap, Jericho comes in from the side and hits him with a code breaker. Great counter to the Meltzer driver. To me, that was spot of the match right there. Wardlow, I was completely convinced he was going to get tossed out because he was up to shenanigans right away. And I'm like, Aubrey Edwards ain't going to put up with this shit for very long. They're going to do the deal where he gets thrown out. But he didn't. He was able to survive out there and do a lot of distracting throughout the match. And even creates a distraction while Matt gets hit with a bat into a DDT for a really close near fall, which was a good spot. But in the end, they recover, regain control, actually get Jericho up for the Meltzer driver again, or go for the Meltzer driver again, this time on Jericho, and they hit it and pin Jericho. That's important. They pin Jericho for the win, and the Young Bucks retain. So I did predict that one correctly. I thought that was the right call there, because I was also correct in who was going to win with my prediction of the Casino Battle Royal. For the Tag Team Casino Battle Royal, there was a particular team in there that, I'm like, assuming Bucks win, I really want to see them face this team. So the Bucks winning here, I think, was the right thing to do. I didn't really see the point of putting the belts on MJF and Jericho, since they have been kind of together for a while, and there's been a lot of dissension with those guys ever since it started. And I'm going to give you an idea of what I think is going to happen this coming Wednesday. So putting the titles on them now, I just, after what they did to the Young Bucks' dad, wouldn't have made any sense. And I'm kind of glad the Bucks retain there, because now we got a hell of a match coming up here for the Young Bucks defending the title against their next opponents. Anyway, but later on in the night, I'm going to scroll down. I wrote this down when it happened, but I want to talk about it now. So later on in the night, if I can find it. Of course I can't. So anyway, later on in the night, here it is. It was after the Miro, Kip, Chuck and Orange match. After that, they cut backstage to Chris Jericho, MJF, and Proud and Powerful. They were being interviewed by Alex Marvez, I believe. And Jericho goes on to announce, well, first he gets mad because Marvez said they failed at their attempt. He goes, well, we lost, but we didn't fail or whatever. And sometimes you have to, change your battle plan. So this coming Wednesday, Inner Circle loves to do these big, summits, debates or summits or conversations or ultimatums. I don't know how many of these they've had. I've lost count, probably at least 8 or 9 now. So this coming Wednesday on Dynamite, we're going to get an Inner Circle War Council where all the members, I think they're going to be in full Inner Circle mode there. Everybody should be there. Wardlow and what's his face? Jake. And all those guys, they should all be in the ring, and they're going to discuss their battle plan and talk about changes that need to be made. And then MJF gets a chance to speak as well, and he says, and it was the way the tone that he put on this line immediately set up a red flag for me. He was like, yes, changes need to be made. And I'm like, Jericho took the pin here, and I've been calling for months. I've been calling ever since 2020, late 2020, or even the fall of 2020, that they are going to turn on Chris Jericho. I think Chris Jericho is, before he retires, going to get a babyface run of some kind in the company. And when they brought in MJF into the Inner Circle, I'm like, that ain't going to last for long. I think MJF will be the one to actually take over the Inner Circle, or the Inner Circle is going to collectively boot Jericho out. So what I think is going to happen is this win, because remember, Jericho took the pin, not MJF. So, and he lost the title a year ago. And that was my initial idea, is that Inner Circle would lose confidence in their leader. He's no longer the champion, lost the belt. He's dropping a couple of matches. Orange Cassidy got the best of him. And, he's been putting guys over a lot. So maybe the Inner Circle don't feel like he's a strong enough leader. And MJF is kind of positioning himself to take over. And we've seen some hints of that. That one spot on TV a few weeks back, where they're in the little lounge room or whatever, and MJF makes the cameraman leave so they can have like a conversation or a private talk or whatever. So I feel like MJF behind Jericho's back has been scheming to get him out of the group if things go sideways. And another thing I think we might see is Sammy Guevara. So I think maybe on Wednesday night, Sammy comes out and maybe reveals that him and MJF were in cahoots the whole time. This whole thing has been an act to dupe Jericho or to manipulate him or trick him or whatever. And I think Sammy shows up, and then maybe all of the Inner Circle members attack Jericho and kick him out and anoint MJF as their new leader. And Jericho, he disappears for a while and then kind of comes back as a babyface and feuds with these guys or something. I think that could be what they're going to do, because otherwise it feels like the Inner Circle is really starting to run its course unless it gets a refresh, unless it gets a restart or a reboot, or it's spiced up a little bit, and a change in leadership would be a big way to spice that up. So that's what I smell for Wednesday. And my evidence for that was that Jericho took the pin tonight. MJF has said a couple of funny things on camera, including tonight, that leads me to believe that could be the case. And I know something is up with that Sammy Guevara shit, where I think there's more than that to that than meets the eye. Unless he still has some backstage heat for whatever went on with the Impact stuff and they're keeping him off TV for a while, I would love to see him turn up on Wednesday and give us a swerve of some kind. That's kind of what I'm eyeballing based on what we saw in the tag match there. But anyway, Bucks retained. Devlin, I agree. That was pretty funny. Appreciate the $5. Max Caster's promo was absolutely hilarious. He is a star in the making. Yeah, what was he saying again? He was talking about fucking Dr. Seuss and all the shit or whatever. So like the pop culture, not pop culture, but the topical shit that's going on, the Andrew Cuomo stuff and all that. So he was kind of putting all that into his raps there. Be careful, don't go too far. Don't Abraham Washington yourself there, Max Caster. Pump your brakes a little. Pretty funny though. Yeah, he was good. I'm not really too familiar with him either because I haven't seen much of him other than AEW. So I'm just kind of getting used to that guy, and I thought he was a good addition to that ladder match. Oh, really, Ryan? Greg, on the post-media call, Big Show said Vince McMahon called Show to congratulate him on signing with AEW, and both agreed it was best for the move for him. That makes me feel really good, and I'm sure it makes Big Show feel good as well, because WWE, at the end of the day, they got to understand that business is business too. Sometimes there are better opportunities for you out there. So I like to hear that because that tells me that maybe there's not any heat, bad blood, spite, anything like that going on, because Paul White at some point is going to have to go into that WWE Hall of Fame. So when his run in AEW is over, I want the door to be open for him to go back to WWE. And I think the door is really open for everybody. I mean, unless you really fucking do them wrong somehow. I mean, if it's just a matter of contract negotiations and agreements can't be made, there's no reason to have heat there. It's just business. You got a better offer, you should take that offer. So that's Vince being Vince. That's Vince being the businessman. He understands. And it's different now. It's not like WCW. It's probably hard for Vince to swallow when like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Randy Savage went to WCW, but Paul White going to AEW is not going to harm WWE at all. The world will just keep on a spinning in their universe. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's not even a blow to them. So what? Big Show's not there. He's not really there anyway. He just comes in from time to time. So why not have another company use him if WWE isn't? So I'm happy to hear that Vince said that. Chick Magnet Joe, the Sparklers got a workout tonight. They did. We're going to be talking about the Sparklers. Don't worry. For those of you who are just kind of tuning in here now, you can scroll back to the beginning of this podcast, and we laughed our asses off about the Sparklers. But we're going to be getting into it here later on when I actually get to the main event. But oh my God, so funny. Where'd I go? There we go. We're back. Just lost my chat there for a minute. Want to make sure I can make sure what you guys are doing so I can see what you're doing. You're not fighting or anything in there. And I got to keep an eye on y'all sometimes. But anyway, back to the results. Like I said, Young Bucks retained over MJF and Jericho. And I think Jericho's going to be ousted from the Inner Circle this Wednesday. How many more of these silly segments can they do with the Inner Circle? I mean, literally, help me. How many have they done? How many of these like gatherings have they done with ultimatums and debates and what they did last week, whatever that was called, Revolution Press Conference, the shit with Moxley and the champagne. Now they're doing this thing. So it's like their deal. Sooner or later, something's got to happen here. And I think Y2J coming back, or Y3J, whatever the fuck he's going to call himself, coming back as a babyface and giving us a little nostalgia run there might be a little bit fun. We'll see. Anywho, after that, next match on the card was the Tag Team Casino Battle Royal. Holy crap, this thing is just delightful to make notes for. There's nothing better than like a 30-plus man fucking Battle Royal that's set up like a Royal Rumble with people coming out every minute or two. And it's even worse when one member of the tag team is eliminated, the team is not eliminated. It's just whoever wins for their team. So it was very hard to keep track of, and I was just typing my balls off. I could not wait for this match to be over. But anyway, the winner of this will be the number one contenders for the tag team titles. I had predicted Pac and Rey Fenix to win this because this past Wednesday on Dynamite, they won in a complete squash. And it made me look at them like, that's actually a pretty goddamn good team. And I was assuming and expecting and hoping that the Bucks would retain over Jericho and MJF. And I'm like, tell me that match doesn't get you rock hard. The Bucks against Pac and Rey Fenix, holy crap. So I was really, really, really rooting for them, and I got my wish. Dark Order, number 5 and 10, were out first. with Dustin and QT Marshall. So they started things off here, and it was going to be a new team every 90 seconds. Excuse me. Proud and Powerful was out after that, followed by the Seidel brothers, followed by Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. And Dark Order, as a matter of fact, had 3, count 'em, tag teams involved in this thing. My God, I have not really gotten a good look at Billy Gunn's sons yet. The Gunn boys were out next, and Jesus Christ, they both look and move exactly like Billy. I was freaking out. I think I've seen them once on AEW Dark, but this has been my first real good look at them. I didn't even know they were members of the Nightmare family, but their physique, their body style, the way they move, the way they throw punches, the way they fall, the way they bump, their fucking face, their hair, everything is just so reminiscent of Billy Gunn. It's scary and uncanny. Pretty crazy. So anyway, they were out there next, followed by Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi, and then the Varsity Blondes after that. Interesting spot here with QT Marshall eliminating both of the Gunn boys. Dustin is pissed because they're members of the Nightmare family. That's when I found that out. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that. So Dustin is pissed at QT, but Dustin is a 50-year-old wrestler who is a veteran who began wrestling in the late 80s. How does this guy not understand that a battle royal is every man for themselves? You know, this is something an emotional young rookie wrestler would do, not a veteran wrestler like Dustin Rhodes, who's been around and seen everything and probably been in more battle royals than he himself can even count. He should understand that that's the way battle royals are. There shouldn't be any hard feelings here, but he took great exception to this, to the point where it pissed off QT, and then QT eliminated himself and then spit in the ring back at Dustin. So they have teased, I remember this from weeks or months back, that they have kind of teased a potential turn for QT Marshall. Looks like that has happened now. And, maybe that will culminate on Dark, or maybe even on Dynamite this week, if they want to have some sort of a segment here to blow this thing off. But looks like he took exception to Dustin doing that, and then didn't even want to try to win the match for his team. So he's like, fuck you. So it would have been interesting if Dustin did win this. What would have happened there? QT doesn't even want to be a part of this team, apparently. But Dustin stayed in there and continued to wrestle. After that, we got Bear Country. My first kind of look at these guys. Well, I guess that's not true. I've seen them one other time, because I thought they were just 2 Bronson Reeds. That one guy looks a lot like Bronson Reed, just like a discount version of him. The only thing I didn't like about this, because the Bear Country guys, they're 2 big guys. They're close to probably 400 pounds each, and that's kind of their gimmick, of these big giant guys that are just going to push and move you around like the Authors of Pain or like a team like that does. But you get Stu Grayson, little 160 pound, 70 pound Stu Grayson, picks one of these motherfuckers up on his shoulders. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd be doing that, at least not yet. Once these guys get some matches, and you got to get them over first as killers and guys that are just big and can't be picked up. You got to slowly build to that, where, they go a whole bunch of matches. Oh, they've never been knocked off their feet before. And then finally they fall. And then finally they start, finally somebody will maybe throw them around a little bit. But, when you're a big, powerful team like that, that's your gimmick. That's a really good way to unintentionally bury a team. I mean, Stu Gray, like what would have happened if, when the Authors of Pain debuted in NXT, if Drake Maverick would have put one of them in the torture rack? It's kind of funny if anything else, but you just buried him, by doing that. But that didn't last long. Once he picked him up, but then he got immediately eliminated by those guys. But still, that's not something I would have done. Jurassic Express was out after that, followed by the Butcher and the Blade, then Private Party, then SCU. And SCU's on a pretty big winning streak, apparently 6-0 in their last 6 matches, and they do have that little internal stipulation with themselves. The next match they lose, they will break up as a team. So, but this didn't count. I guess this is only one-on-one matches, tag matches with those guys. After that, the Bear Country guys eliminated Luchasaurus, and then the Blade, was it Blade or Butcher? I think it was Butcher, eliminated both of the Bears. So that was kind of cool. Pac and Phoenix and Ray Phoenix were out next, followed by Alex Reynolds and John Silver. And there was 2 spots in this match. I think Alex Reynolds picked somebody up and gave him a pile driver on the body of someone else. But I think earlier on, I can't remember who did it. I think it might have been one of the Bear Country guys, did kind of like a sit-down driver on top of another guy too. So that was 2 spots in the same match. And when Reynolds did that, Tony was like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. I'm like, Tony, you saw it 5 minutes ago, which was kind of funny. After that, we get everybody starts getting eliminated. We get our final four of Rey Fenix, Pac, Jungle Boy, and John Silver. So that's your final four there. What a spot with Rey Fenix tight roping down. He walks the tightrope on the top rope and kicks John Silver off the apron. So Silver's basically standing in the middle of the apron. Fenix gets up on the turnbuckle and walks. Not like Undertaker's old school where he's hanging on to somebody. He just walks like a fucking tightrope, walks over there and kicks John Silver right in the face. He goes flying off and gets eliminated. That was incredible. After that, Jungle Boy wound up eliminating Pac, leaving himself and Fenix in the ring. Crazy dive onto the outside of the ring through the ropes, luckily, by Fenix into Jungle Boy. And he went so far, he went over the barricade. Very reminiscent of ECW back in the day when Rob Van Dam would be doing that shit. Sick finish here. Great finish with a Poison Rana to Jungle Boy, and then Fenix is able to eliminate him and win the match for his team. So Rey Fenix and Pac, very, very happy Pac. Did you notice how happy he was when they won that? They're going to be getting a shot at the AEW tag team titles against the Young Bucks, and I don't give a fuck who wins that. I just want to see it. That's going to be a good match there. So I got my wish there, and on the main card, at that point, I was 2 for 2 in my predictions, and I was a pretty happy guy. Zane G, what's up, man? Appreciate the $10 from you. Maybe after the Christian appearance, maybe I can relax and say Lesnar is a lockdown for WrestleMania. I'm not sure if Brock's going to be at WrestleMania at this point. If he is, what the hell is he going to do? We'll find out. We'll probably find out we'll get an idea of what's going to go on this Monday, because I'm sure Monday on Raw will be setting up for if the title is going to be defended at Fastlane. Who knows? They might just make it Roman and Bryan and not do the Raw title. I think they will, but we'll find out. After the tag team battle royal, what was up next? Oh yeah, backstage interview with Paul White. He looked great in a suit, clean shaven, very, very handsome. Almost as handsome as good mic work, but not quite. And he's telling the announcer girl that him and the only people that know about who the piece of talent is that's coming in is himself, Tony Khan, and all of the talent. And he says, I'll give you one hint. No one can outwork him. And that would become Christian's kind of new catchphrase, which I don't know if I'm not sure if that's going to go over well with some of the younger talent. I saw Sammy Guevara tweet something out like, I can outwork you, kind of thing. So we'll see how that works out for Christian in the longer run. After that, we get the women's title match. Hikaru Shida defending the AEW women's title against Ryu Mizunami. And this turned out to be a great match. Hell of a slow start, though. Man, I wasn't into it at first. I like what I've seen from Mizunami so far, but some of it, the silliness of it, I don't really like, the miming and all that. So, there was a lot of that early dancing stuff earlier on in the match that I wasn't a big fan of. And I really hated the spot in the corner where she pins Shida in the corner and she's giving her chops. But they're just lame-ass chops. She's basically just has her right in front of her and she's just going like this. And Shida's like got her arms and she's like, it's just like little taps. She's not slapping her, just taps. I'm like, Shida, get your arm out there. Punch her in the fucking face, It just looked terrible. Did not look realistic at all. Looked fake as fuck. And I really, really, really didn't like that. I'm like, oh my God, Jim Cornette's going to rip this apart. But then the match picked up good. And it turned out to be a really, really great match. Shida would win with kind of like a spinning knee strike. After several near falls, she hit her with a pretty good knee strike earlier on, and there was a really scary spot on the stage that almost gave me a fucking heart attack. What's the move called? Like if you're going to give somebody like an Alabama slam, but instead you just sit down like a reverse pile driver, what's that called? She gave Ryu Mizunami one of those on the stage, but Mizunami barely, and I mean barely, tucked her head. And it looked like it was reminiscent of kind of the Styles Clash. When AJ puts that on, you're always watching where the guy's head is. And I'm like, and if it's straight down, you're like, God damn, be careful. And the way Mizunami took that bump, she's lucky to be alive. That was very close. I mean, I thought she was going to land on the top of her head. Instead, she landed on the back of her neck. Either way, that wasn't good. She was able to continue the match. Referee checked on her. She got up, collected herself. She worked the rest of the match just fine. But they were 1 inch away from paralyzation. For real. And if you guys saw that spot, you know what I'm talking about. Oof. Be careful out there, ladies, please. But in the end, Shida winning, retaining the title in an extremely physical match that turned out to be off the hook. And I really enjoyed this women's match a lot. So No really complaints about the overall match, except for the slow start and the very dangerous spot that took place on the stage. Other than that, this was really a strong match. But then, much like the main event, they kind of ruined it, because then they do all of this extracurricular shit, which AEW has been very guilty of doing. Just a classic case of kind of overbooking here. Shida just winning that physical match and retaining the title in a really hard-fought match, because I guess they told the fans that Shida has never defeated Ryu Mizunami before. They faced, I think, 2 or 3 other times, all ending in draws. So that was kind of a good story there. Finally, Shida getting over that hump, retaining the title, hard-fought match, selling the match, selling the injuries and the punishment that she took. And then everybody and their mother comes out here. You got Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero showing up. Nyla attacks Shida from behind. Britt Baker then comes out with Maki Ito and Rebel, who's walking without the crutch, and then remembers she had to limp, and then she puts the crutch on and starts walking. That was limping. That was kind of funny. And then Thunder Rosa comes out to make the save. I'm like, none of this shit was necessary at all. All you needed was that spinning knee, 3 count, Shida celebration, hit the showers, babe. That's it. They did all this extra shit that was completely fucking pointless and didn't like it. Bad idea there. So they kind of ruined what was a pretty damn good match between those two. After that, this was another weird one. We have Miro and Kip Sabian taking on Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. And of course, Charles has just finished up his butlership with Miro. And Miro's rocking the dark hair again. When did he do that? Was this the first time we've seen him with that? Unless I missed it last week and didn't notice. He looks good that way. Miro is in such good shape. I have no idea why this guy is not a top contender for a title. I've not really been a huge fan of the Sabian-Miro pairing, because a lot of what they've done so far on TV has been a little bit silly, and I think Miro's better than that. And I feel like this alliance should be coming to an end, and I picked Chuck and Orange Cassidy to get the victory here, for Chuck to get revenge on, for the Butler stuff, and hopefully that would lead to some dissension between Miro and Kip where they would break up. But I kind of got my wish and I kind of didn't here. Prior to the match, before they come out there, Miro and Kip Sabian attack Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy like backstage, like in the hallway. And Miro takes Chuck, and there's this like door with a glass square frame window right in the center of it. And he takes Chuck and he throws him right through the glass, busting him open. And I got to shout out. I got to at least say the person's name here. I retweeted somebody later. I fucking popped. Who was it? Shout out to Italo Santana at Bullet Club ITA. Posts a gif of Chuck being thrown into the square glass, and he says, Chuck Taylor's a coward trying to escape through the door. Oh, that's fantastic. Marty Jannetty tried to dive through the window to escape, so that was great. So anyway, Chuck took the glass to the face, and then Kip Sabian in the background is beating the shit out of Orange Cassidy, and then they drag Chuck Taylor out through the aisleway there during the entrances, and continue the beat down on him. And he, of course, he's bleeding, and they get him in the ring. They just start beating the shit out of him for a while until Orange Cassidy recovers, finally shows up, goes berserk. I mean, he's really taken it to these guys hard, hits Miro with a crazy orange punch. And Penelope Ford on the outside of the ring, she took a sick bump off the apron. I think Miro shoved Taylor. I can't remember which one he shoved, but Miro shoved somebody into Penelope. She goes flying off the apron into the barricade, and a pretty good little bump by her there. It's pretty good stuff, and Kip immediately goes down to check on her while the match continues in the ring. Unbelievable sell by Orange Cassidy on one of Miro's machka or roundhouse kicks. He gave Orange. I mean, Orange just looked like a wet noodle the way he got hit with that. I loved that. In the end, Miro corners Chuck Taylor in the ring, locks in the accolade. Orange Cassidy is disposed of, and Chuck Taylor taps out. So Miro and Kip Sabian wins the match, but a little tiny bit of dissension at the end, because Kip was just concerned. Once Penelope took that bump, that was all he was concerned about. Kind of left Miro to do the work in the ring by himself. Miro seemed a little bit upset about that, but in the end, they kind of hugged and seemed happy. But there's your seed planted there. My idea for these guys to implode here after this match looks like it's just going to be drug out a little longer. I think Miro is way too valuable to be playing video games with Kip Sabian, so I think at some point this issue needs to come to a head. It needs to implode, and Miro needs to turn on him or whatever and become an AEW title contender. At the very least, TNT title. He's in the best shape of his career. He looks like a star. He looks like a stud. A lot of times you can tell, which guys came from WWE and which guys doesn't. or don't because, just of their physical condition and how good they look. So I want more from Miro, and hopefully this will be the beginning of it. Next match on the card that we had was Hangman Page taking on Matt Hardy in the big money match. I really enjoyed the hype package for this. I forgot what Hangman said when he was like sitting there drinking the bourbon or whatever, and he called Matt a shitty little piece of shit, carny asshole, fuckwad or whatever. Laughed my ass off at that. Match was pretty good. I thought Matt Hardy would give Hangman a pretty good match here. I was 1,000,000,000% convinced that Hangman Page would be your winner here because, like I said, he's in the back of my mind for Kenny's next real threat to the title. I think his immediate threat will be Kingston, but ultimately the person that takes it away from him should be Adam, I think. I could be wrong, but and if that's the case, and if I'm right, Hangman ain't got to be being pinned by anybody right now. So especially Matt Hardy. So good match here. Lots of good stuff. Maybe went a couple minutes longer than I would have liked, but still pretty good. Moonsault by Hangman about midway through the match onto Matt Hardy onto the floor. But as he's doing the back flip, Hardy kind of puts his hands up to protect himself, and his fist just catches Hangman right in the face, bloody lip a little bit. Ref's got his blood gloves on, and he's got a little bit of bleeding from the mouth there. Both private party guys try to show up to try to basically buy Matt Hardy time because Hangman's got him down. He even goes for the buckshot lariat, I think, and that's when the private party guys were there to kind of offer a little bit of a distraction and allow Matt to recover a little bit. Matt does, winds up hitting a side effect and a twist of fate onto Adam Page for a near fall. But after all of that interference by the private party, the entire Dark Order come out to back up and help and save Adam Page and dispose of the private party guys, even though Adam Page had already done a pretty good job of that on his own. The Dark Order, they really want Page in their group, so they came out to kind of help a little bit, and in a really good spot, Hangman is on the apron on the outside of the ring. Matt Hardy hits him. He falls backwards, basically like a trust fall, into the Dark Order guys, and they shove him back right, into buckshot lariat position, and he grabs the ropes, does the flip, bam, nails Matt Hardy. Great finish there. Loved that, and Hangman wins the match. And of course, this is a money match. He wins, I believe it's 100% of Matt Hardy's earnings for the first quarter of 2021, I think is what it is. So he gets all of Matt's money, apparently, as a stipulation in this. And he celebrates with some Hangman Wisers with the Dark Order. So that's still fun. I'm really hoping to get a resolution to that soon. But then again, I'm in no hurry either because I really like the dynamic. I like the fact that he doesn't know what to do. They really want him. Sometimes he teams up with him. Sometimes he's annoyed by him. He doesn't seem like he has really any firm decision out of his head and what he wants to do in terms of his association with these guys and whatnot. So that's all pretty fun stuff, and we'll see where it goes in the future. But big win, I should say, for Page on this one. Fresh news. Yeah, I did enjoy the show. That's what we're talking about, unless you're talking to somebody else. But if you're talking to me, yes, I did enjoy the show. After that, we had the big Face of Revolution ladder match. Now, this match, up until this point, we hadn't heard Big Show's big announcement yet. We hadn't heard who the signee was. And I was assuming that they were two different things, that this mystery entrant in this was not connected to the Big Show stuff or Paul White stuff. But when the match started, I'm like, there ain't many matches left. Maybe White is going to come out now and announce the signee, and that person's going to be the addition to the ladder match, because if it does turn out to be Christian, like everybody heard about earlier on in the day on the internet, then this might be a good spot to put him in because he's kind of good at ladder matches. So, but it turns out, luckily, it is two separate things. And this match, of course, was Max Caster versus Lance Archer versus Scorpio Sky versus Penta versus Cody versus the mystery entrant. And it turned out to be Ethan Page. Not bad. I can live with that. We've been thinking that he could turn up in AEW at any point because of his run in Impact and stuff. So this makes a lot of sense. It's a good acquisition here. Don't know if he's here now or just coming in from Impact or what the situation there is, but that's a solid pickup. And he's a perfect person to put in this match. I had picked Penta in this match, but even yesterday in my predictions, I was like, I don't know if Penta and Phoenix are both going to win their special matches, but I really wanted Penta to win this because the idea of Penta versus Darby Allin this Wednesday for the TNT title is so awesome sounding. That's really what I wanted to see. But I thought the favorites were Cody or Lance Archer, but it was somebody completely different. I was wrong on all accounts here. Cody, he took a pretty hilarious looking destroyer from Penta onto the ladder that was bridged onto the ring apron and the guardrail. But the way he took it, he landed completely on Penta. Penta took the worst of it. Cody goes flying and falling off the ladder, and he's being escorted away by the medical staff. Arn is out there. The officials and the doctors and stuff are taking Cody away. So he's kind of selling the injury. Excuse me. But it didn't really look as good. As a matter of fact, Penta took the far worse of that bump than Cody did. But Cody kind of gets taken away, but he hangs around throughout the entire match. You could see him in the tunnel. He was back there just hanging around the tunnel, like trying to convince everybody to let him go back in the ring. So you knew he was going to come back out there eventually. What a frog splash by Scorpio Sky onto Max Caster onto the ladder in the ring. Ouch. That looked good. Great form. I love Scorpio's frog splash. He's got one of the best looking ones in wrestling. Archer then put him through a ladder right after that, and that's when Cody starts coming back. So Cody finally breaks away from everybody in the tunnel. He runs back. He's got his weight belt off of his waist. He starts whacking everybody with the belt. Jake Roberts gets in the ring, hits his beautiful short arm clothesline on Ethan Page. I always mark out for that move, and he still hits it pretty well. I mean, Jake, I saw him on the Jericho Cruise. He does not look like a guy who's completely got his equilibrium all the time. You know, he was doing a one-man show in the ring, and he was like hanging onto the ropes a little bit just so he wouldn't fucking fall down. You saw it, Devlin. But he hit that thing perfectly. Ethan sold it like $1 million. Penta then took out Jake, which was funny. Jake's gotten physical and taken a couple of bumps a couple times now on TV, which is just awesome. And in the end, it turns out to be the new attitude Scorpio Sky climbing up and grabbing what is, I don't care what AEW says, that is not a brass fucking ring. That's a brass tire. The thing is this big, like literally, it's humongous. So Scorpio gets up there, unhooks it, he wins, and he gets a shot at the TNT title this Wednesday against Darby Allin. I'm not necessarily disappointed about that. I really like Scorpio Sky. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think it's a good idea to kind of turn him the way they did and give him a new attitude and all of that, but he wasn't on my radar, so I was a little bit shocked that he won, but it'll probably be a pretty good match. As much as I like Scorpio, and he was on my short list of guys to win the TNT title when the title was created, he's not really on my list immediately, so I don't really see him winning the title on Wednesday, but, you know, he could. I kind of don't want him to, though, even though I like him. Like his title win, I think I'd rather see later. I would have much rather seen somebody else win this match here, and then, I don't know, a month or two, he wins some sort of weird number one contender match and gets a shot and then wins it. Not Wednesday. So we'll see what happens, but Scorpio Sky did win the brass tire. After that was when we got the big signing. No Paul White for this. I was under the impression that Paul White would come out there and introduce this person, but he didn't. It was just Justin Roberts. It is now time to find out who will sign their contract or whatever with AEW. And they started this kind of like a countdown thing on the screen, and you could kind of just tell by the way the music sounded that it was Christian. And it was. Christian Cage is All Elite. He comes out to the ring, does his thing, gets out there, got the contract in hand, signs it, doesn't even cut a promo, unless I missed it. But I think that was it. He just came out there and signed the deal, and he is now All Elite. And like I said earlier, you know, I was kind of hoping it wasn't going to be him just because of what's going on in WWE right now with Roman Reigns and Edge. You know, I'm an old school guy. I saw Christian and Edge start right from the beginning live with my own eyes in person. You know, I went to so many WWE events during the era. Sorry, I'm sounding like Jim Ross here. During the era of the 5-second poses and the flash photography and the kazoos and all that great stuff. And, you know, seeing these guys through their singles runs, their King of the Ring victories, Edge's world title victories, Christian's world, very, very, very underrated world title runs in 2011, and his program with Randy Orton, which was one of the best of the last 10 years and does not get enough credit for how good it was. I really wanted him to stick around because I'm like, how can he not be involved in this? You know, how can Edge, you know, be doing what he's doing without Christian having some sort of an influence here? And I thought for sure I had this pegged. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even went as far as to guarantee it in my podcast, which I guarantee a lot of things that I'm wrong about, but I was guaranteeing that Christian would get murdered at some point by Roman Reigns. It's the classic heel thing to do. Every time Brett feuded with somebody, they always attacked Owen, you know, or something. So I thought for sure it would be a deal where, you know, Roman would catch Edge would be a night off, or Christian would be there and Edge wouldn't, and Roman would kind of corner Christian in the ring, and then him and Jey Uso would just beat the fuck out of him, and it would just add so much fuel to the fire. And then if Edge did wind up winning the title at WrestleMania, Christian being in the ring with him, embracing, sharing that moment with his friend, I think would have been really special. Because he shared that moment with him at WrestleMania 27, correct? Am I imagining that? Is that a Mandela effect, or was Christian out there with Edge when he was beating the hell out of Alberto Del Rio's car? I kind of remember that. So I felt like he should be involved in that. As a fan, I would really like to see that. But like we talked about earlier with Big Show and the gentleman that told me that he revealed on the press conference that Vince called him and congratulated him, wrestling is a business. So Christian might have gotten a better offer from them, more to do creatively. Maybe WWE said, yeah, we'll bring you in, but we're only going to bring you in for certain matches or, occasionally. And, we don't want to give you a full-time deal or full-time money or anything like that. And even though it might have been nice for him to be there with Edge, he's got a better deal to go over there. And if that's the case, who can blame him? And Christian Cage, I don't want anybody directing any hate towards him. It's not his fault that AEW hyped him up like it's going to be the damn Rock coming in. So the fact that they made such a big deal about this, and, I guess this is shocking in a good way. I was expecting to see Christian on WWE programming, not AEW. So yeah, I suppose that's shocking. And it is even shocking in a good way, I suppose. But they were still making it seem like it was a much bigger deal than Christian. Not that Christian isn't a big deal, but they were making it seem like it was a bigger deal. And I think if they just wouldn't have been so crazy about it and maybe said, hey, we're going to announce a new signing and that's it, or not make it sound like it's this earth-shattering type of signing that's going to change the balance of power. The only person that was going to be able to do that is Charles Montgomery Punk. That's it. There's nobody else that would be able to really generate that type of Twitter-breaking response than him or Brock Lesnar or somebody else big. I mentioned Goldberg, and we threw out all sorts of names yesterday on the Winged Eagle and the predictions. We had every name nailed down, and Christian was on my hard list of no's, along with Batista. Way too many people thought it was Batista. I'm like, it is not Batista. But then again, I also said it wasn't going to be Christian Cage. And here he is. And it was kind of leaked out earlier in the day. A lot of people were tweeting about it. I saw it like around noon my time here, hours before the pay-per-view started. A lot of people were saying it's going to be Christian. It's going to be Christian. Don't know who's responsible for that leak, but it did turn out to be the case. And Christian is now all elite. But, let's look at the bright side of this. What's really the downside of Christian being there? There really isn't one. He's gonna be a solid presence there. He's another name, and you might, after Wednesday, have two big names off of your roster. We're not going to see Moxley for a while, and I've got the feeling we might not see Jericho for a while either if my idea of the Inner Circle kicking him out does wind up happening on Wednesday. I could be way off base on that, but that's just what I smell. So if that's the case, you've lost two big ones, and now you bring in Christian, maybe, to kind of fill the void a little bit. And you add, I don't consider Christian to be a WWE reject. I consider him to be a pro wrestling veteran with a lot to offer in and outside of the ring. So him being there doesn't bother me at all. It's how they handled it, how they hyped it up, how they made it sound is what really, kind of chapped my ass a little bit. But we'll see. I even talked about yesterday in the podcast that maybe they can do something. I don't know if we'd want to see this or not. I'm not sure, but how like they had the Millionaires Club in TNA, you could do something similar in AEW where it's just like all WWE guys. You could have Mox, you could have Jericho, you could have Christian, you could have Miro, you could have Paul White, you could have anybody else who's there that was a major player, maybe Billy Gunn. I don't know, help me out. Who's some other names? Who's some former WWE guys that came over? I don't think Jake Hager fits the bill. Maybe not him, but some, just mainstays in WWE that are now over there, forming a faction there for the younger current AEW type of talent to battle against, and, might be kind of fun, but it's also something that's been done before. We've seen it in every promotion. It would basically be a version of the NWO, and not sure if that would work or not, but makes you wonder, what Christian is going to do, if he's just going to be on his own or if he's going to, create alliances, maybe with like a Miro. I'd love to see Miro and Christian together. They look good together, something like that. So we'll see. I think he's got a lot of potential there, and I'm glad that he's there. It's probably a good sense of pride too, even though I really wanted to see Christian involved in the Edge Roman stuff. for those two guys, it's probably a pretty good feeling to know that they're both in very prominent positions in, opposite wrestling companies. It's they're probably texting each other every day, like, can you believe this shit? Like it's we're both kind of a big deal in two different companies, and that's something that hasn't happened since Christian was in TNA. So they should be proud of that they both have found success without each other. And Christian, more than Edge. I mean, Edge never left ever. Once he was working the indies and he did a couple of spots for WCW, but once WWE locked him up, he never appeared anywhere else. And Christian has appeared in many places. He's now been in TNA and WWE and now AEW. So best of luck to Christian. We love him here on this channel and wish him the best, regardless of how silly the announcement was. Oh, Millionaire. Oh, Main Event Mafia. Why am I thinking Millionaires Club? What was that? Maybe that was WCW. Main Event Mafia. I don't know. I don't watch TNA, Barry. Appreciate the $2. Thanks for correcting me on that. Chris Ludecki, thanks for the 5 from you as well. Do you think Christian would make any appearance in Impact after leaving TNA on kind of bad terms? He could. I didn't even think about that, about the working agreement. I wasn't aware that he did leave TNA on bad terms. I just thought his contract was up and he went back to WWE. He did go back there that one time, remember? They cut the deal for Flair at the Hall of Fame. Yeah, he does have a pretty big history with Impact, but he might go back there. I don't know. I don't know what they have planned for him. I don't know how, somebody of his stature, a veteran of his size, when they're negotiating a contract or something, if he wants to know, what are you going to do with me? What do you have planned? What do you think we could do? I don't know if any of that is really talked about, or if it's just a matter of him signing and them saying, we're going to do with you what we fucking feel like. So maybe they have some ideas. And either way, it feels like he probably could have stuck around with WWE if he wanted to, but he saw better opportunity here. And that could be not only money, but it could be creative. So if he's involved in that, I don't know. I think Impact looks a lot different since last time he was there, a lot smaller. And I just cannot watch Impact. I can't watch it until this pandemic is over. I've tried to check it out a couple times on Access TV or whatever the fuck it's on. I see it a couple times on my television, and I've watched it, but that empty arena shit, it reminds me too much of the Performance Center shows when the pandemic first started, and I can't do it. I just don't like it. I just do not like empty arena shit. Hate it, hate it, hate it. So once Impact is able to have an audience and there again, maybe I will start giving it a better look, but I just can't right now. It's not really my thing. After that, we're down to our final 2 matches of the card. We have the big street fight tag team match pitting Brian Cage and Ricky Starks against Darby Allin and Sting. Now, we had speculated that this could be a cinematic match, but I don't think we knew for sure. And it was really good. It was just really well produced. It looked awesome. The entrances here were really good, especially for Sting and Darby Allin, with Sting, skateboarding down the ropes. And Sting's makeup was it was like half Sting, half Darby, which looked really good. And he didn't stop to pick up Darby. I think he kept driving past him or whatever. And then they kind of make their entrances here and kind of a reminiscent of throwback to John Cena at WrestleMania when they did all those lookalike Cenas. They had a bunch of those Stings. And I hope one of them was Stang, and I hope one of them was the fake Sting from WCW as well. But they had about, 15 to 20 guys out there in Sting masks kind of making the entrance with him, and it was just very awesome looking, just very well done. It looked professional. It didn't look half-assed. It looked like something you'd see in WWE in terms of how they can produce some segments like this, and it was really good. And then the match took place in like this 2 or 3 story type of warehouse deal. There was a ring there, but there was also like these walkways with these railings and these, and these pits in the middle. And there's just all these weapons you could use, barrels and bats and glass window panes and all this. And it had a very dark looking tone to it. It wasn't in black and white. It was just very dark. And you had Taz sitting in on commentary for this, so he got to witness all of this. And I thought it was just really well done and a really smart move because, this was probably the best way to make Sting look as good as possible, to do a cinematic edited type of deal. Because if this guy, and I'm sure Sting will still get in the ring on a regular, AEW Dynamite or pay-per-view or something at some point and do something, but in terms of, protecting him, not exposing him for being 61 or just not being able to do as much physically, this was a good match to do. Although we have seen Sting get physical. He dropped a Scorpion Death Drop on someone last week, and he took a power bomb a couple of weeks ago. So he's been doing some stuff physical in there, but this was better because you can shoot it, and then you can cut it, and you can edit it and do all the stuff in post to make it look as good as possible. And I thought they did a pretty good job here. I'm curious how long ago they wound up taping this and how long it took them to do it. Can't wait to hear the details on that once somebody reports on it. But anyway, like I said, you got the ring in the warehouse, you got the barrels, you got all these walkways and shit. Really good spot that somebody mentioned earlier on, I think in a super chat with or maybe a regular comment, with Brian Cage lifted up Darby Allin in suplex position and then walked his ass up the steps to the second floor. That was very cool. Hook wound up turning up. Taz's son showed up there out of nowhere to kind of interfere, so he gave Starks and Cage a little bit of an advantage there. And then in a great spot, I love this. They took Darby Allin, I think Cage and Starks did, and they grab, how you'd grab your friends back in the day? One person grabs his feet, the other person grabs his arms, and you just swing them like not a seesaw, but, like you're going to jump rope with him. Well, they do that, and they take him, they start swinging him, and they throw him right into the wall where there is like this big glass, like window pane leaning up against it, and Darby just goes crashing through that. Unreal. That looked really cool. Darby would somehow survive that, wind up diving. They did another cool spot. He dove, I guess he's on the third floor, and he dives onto the second floor, onto this platform that is bridging the gap between the second floor and the bottom floor, and he crashes through that, and they just crash right through to the pits of hell. Very cool spot there. In the end, though, you get Sting in the ring. I think he crashed through Brian Cage there. In the end, you get Sting in the ring alone with Ricky Starks, hits him with the Scorpion Death Drop, and gets the win. Don't even know how they disposed of Hook. I don't have that written down, so I don't know how they got rid of Hook. Maybe he was involved in that big bump. I don't remember. But in the end, just like the Page and Matt Hardy match, this was one match that I was extremely confident in terms of my prediction or whatever. So Darby Allin and Sting got the win, and Sting wins his first match in AEW. Very cool. There was going to be no doubt whatsoever about the outcome of this one. Sting is they're not going to do what WWE did to him and job his ass out. He's going to win his first match in the company, and I'm glad he did. Raymond Ragbar, you want a refund? You are really going to be tough to please. I don't want a refund. Sure, there were some silly spots in the show, but just to be... I don't know what you want out of wrestling. The comments like this only come from like younger fans, because there's no way somebody my age would ever have that opinion about a show like this, unless maybe you're Jim Cornette. If you just want good, fun wrestling, this show really, really did give it to you. Think about it. You had an unbelievable tag team title match to open the show, which was just a great display of tag team wrestling. Battle Royal was fun. Women's title match was good. We had... the Miro and Kip stuff was a little bit telling. We had good singles matches like Matt Hardy and Hangman Page. The ladder match was all right. The Sting match was a treat to see, and all of this. It was 9 matches on the show. Like it was fine. You could hate it or whatever, but I don't know how you're really going to be entertained as a wrestling fan if you can watch this show and just think the whole thing sucked. You don't really have much hope of being entertained, because there's no way you're going to go over to that other company and find anything good over there either. So you might just want to find a new form of entertainment to watch, because you suck. So do you, Kyle Lowry. I'm kidding. None of y'all suck. Even the people that hate the pay-per-view. You don't suck. You're just cynical, like the rest of the fucking community is. Anyway, after that is the big main event. Jon Moxley, or Kenny Omega, I should say, defending the AEW title against Jon Moxley in an exploding barbed wire cage match. The referee in the meth suit cracked me up, waiting for Jesse Pinkman to show up. They got this thing rigged up. They were explaining the rules several times throughout the show. Don Callis sat in on commentary for this. And, they got the barbed wire set up in the ring there, and all of the corners, of course, are rigged with explosive, or all the ropes are rigged with explosives. They also have platforms covered in barbed wire, also rigged with explosives throughout, or scattered around the outside of the ring as well. And the match is on. Both guys make their entrances. They start brawling. Moxley gets busted open pretty early when Kenny Omega throws powder into his face and then throws Moxley into the barbed wire, and that explodes. So Moxley did take the first explosion. So basically what they tried to do is they would hit like the center of the barbed wire, and the explosions would happen on both sides of their head. So it never really exploded in their face or anything. So they probably had to be very aware of what they were doing in there. If one of these guys would have gotten knocked loopy or got a concussion in there, it might have been hard for them to finish this, knowing where to be and, being aware of your surroundings to where you don't blow your fucking face off. Good spot later on when Moxley, who at this point is completely covered in a crimson mask, he picks up Kenny and hits him with a paradigm shift off the apron onto one of those platforms that then explodes. That looked pretty good. We got a one-winged angel onto Moxley, and this was good. I think it was a one-winged angel onto Mox, but I think Mox got his foot on the rope or foot on the barbed wire, but when he touched the barbed wire, it explodes. So even though he got hit with Kenny's finish there, the barbed wire exploded and it kind of broke up the 3 count. I thought that was a good spot. This thing was just brutal. I mean, these guys had cuts all over them. They were taking ridiculous bumps. Moxley's head was ripped apart. Kenny's got cuts on his arms, and he's just being brutalized in there as well. The Good Brothers wound up hitting the ring. Not a big surprise that they would turn up there. I expected to see that. If I'm not mistaken, they were wearing their championship belts. It was just a little silly to me. I mean, this is a big deal. This is life and death. Why are you wearing your belt out there? You need to be out there to help Kenny Omega win. Why are you wearing your belt? I guess you could wear your gear, but I wouldn't even wear my gear. Street clothes is all the Good Brothers needed to be wearing when they came out there. So that's just a little detail that I probably would have fixed. I thought it looked a little dumb when you got this exploding barbed wire, unconventional type of match where somebody could legitimately die, and you're coming out there in your costume. I think you should just be out there in jeans and a t-shirt, and a fucking brick. That's all you need. So them coming out there in full gear, no pun intended, was a little silly. I love the exploding bat. This has been used. I think Onita used one of these in a death match before. They had a couple of bats out there wrapped in barbed wire, and Mox was even fighting the Good Brothers off when they came out there to hit the ring. He was fighting them both off with the barbed wire bat, but Kenny's got one of his own, and he goes to whack Moxley right in the face, and it explodes. Very cool. That I liked a lot. In the end, after a lot of help from the Good Brothers, Kenny hits another one-winged angel onto Moxley. This time he's unable to kick out, and Kenny pins him and retains the title. And a match that, excuse me, I thought was going to go a little bit longer because they had that timer. There was that 30-minute time limit on the explosion. So when they kept mentioning that, I'm like, okay, they're basically giving it away that we're going to get a minimum of a 30-minute main event match because you want the explosions to go off in the end. That's the climax. You're not going to have the match end and then not have the shit go off. So I thought that both guys were going to survive the 30 minutes. The bullshit would go off and then they would continue fighting. We'd go to the finish. But instead, they had Kenny pin Moxley, and then the Good Brothers, who are still out there, handcuff Moxley. They still beat the shit out of him. They're beating the shit out of him some more. Then they handcuff him and leave him in the ring. And then you start getting down to like the final minute of the countdown. Like the countdown doesn't stop just because the match does. So Callis gets off headstead. He starts freaking out. He runs down the ring. He's trying to pull his guys out of there. He's like, the ring's going to blow up. So all this was very suspenseful. Like as we're watching it, I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. So I was like, I knew exactly what they were going to do because we heard the rumors that Moxley, we might not see him for a while after this. I'm like, they're going to kill the motherfucker off. They're going to leave him in that ring face down, handcuffed when the ring explodes. And Callis is trying to pull out the Good Brothers and Omega, and they get him out of the ring. You get down to, 20 seconds left, 25 seconds left, and Moxley's all in the ring alone. He's motionless. I think he's face down, and he's got handcuffs. And then the countdown is just starting. Poor Renee is tweeting out WTF during all this stuff, and she's probably freaking out at home. And then as it looks like Moxley is going to be, incinerated, out runs Eddie Kingston in just a really smart spot with all their history. They had a brutal feud last year, but they also have a lot of history as being friends. And their issue and their beef was squashed, I think, even on camera. Even though one's a heel and one's a babyface, they kind of did come together after their feud and kind of say, it is what it is. See you down the road or whatever. So Eddie running out there to try to help Mox. I thought what they were going to do is have Eddie just kind of drag him out of the ring in the nick of time as the the shit explodes and it's like, wow, Eddie saved Moxley's life. That would be pretty cool. But instead, he's trying to wake Moxley up, but he's still kind of unconscious. He can't get him out of the ring. He realizes there's only 5 seconds left. He's risking his own life now, and the only thing he has left to do is to jump on Moxley and cover his head. And this whole time this is happening, I'm like, this is going to be a great finish. And it's very, it's very suspenseful. It's very dramatic. So, we're down to 5, 4, 3, 2, and Eddie dives over. Loud motorcycle. Eddie dives over Moxley to cover him up. The countdown ends, and we're waiting for the explosion, and it's literally the Gilbert sparklers coming out of each ring post. And I think maybe one explosion that was on the outside of the ring. There might have been more. There might have been a couple explosions on the outside of the ring, but it was very small. There was no sparks, flames, heat, smoke. None of that stuff was anywhere near Moxley and Kingston. Nowhere near him. 20 feet away from those guys. They might have some residual heat or whatever, but the whole ring didn't explode. I think they could have rigged this up better. Somebody brought up the idea, somebody brought up the idea of maybe having the ring implode like they did in WWE a couple times with the superplex onto the ring. Maybe do that in combination with the explosions would have looked a little bit better, but that was the lamest shit after everything else looked okay. It didn't look that cheesy or hokey the rest of the match. It was just the end that was like, oh my God. And plus they fucking completely ruined what was a great moment with Kingston coming out there to protect Moxley, because if this would have been pulled off correctly, and this would have been pulled off well, that would have been a big moment there, for Kingston to do that. And would have added a lot of a depth to him, and they could have done a lot with this down the road in terms of the relationship with him and Jon Moxley and all of that, and would probably even earn him a shot maybe at Kenny Omega as the next challenger for him. But it was so lame. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast that I was just laughing my ass off. I came up and we went live as I was still laughing because I'm like, for real? It's just like, it's Diesel pyro, Diesel. When he had the things and they shot out of it, it wasn't even Kane pyro. It was Diesel pyro, which isn't an explosion. It's just sparks. That's it. So it really looked terrible. I don't know how AEW was able to pull off what was a pretty good match up until that point. Because how do you pull off a match that has explosions and shit? How do you really, really do that on American pay-per-view? And, they did up until that point, and then they shit the bed at the end. So bad looking, man, oh man. And it really is now going to take away from the fact that Kingston sacrificed himself to save Moxley, because he didn't sacrifice jack shit. He intended to, but it wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary. And Devlin had the idea a while back earlier on the podcast that maybe they can play it off by having Omega and Callis come out now on TV and said they were trolling everybody and they never intended to have anybody killed. And I like that idea because, it's a lose-lose situation for them. They made such a big deal that they were the ones spending sleepless nights designing this crazy match and this sadistic shit. So if they design and they build a bomb and you blow somebody up, you are a terrorist and you're going to federal prison, wrestling or no wrestling, and then on the other side of that coin, if Kenny Omega is not able to make it out of the ring in time, then he dies. So either way, he's fucked, 6 ways to Sunday here. So I don't think it was a really good idea for them to really rig that to explode anyway. The problem is the announcer sold it. The announcer sold it as if it was a real explosion and that, oh my God, these guys could be burned beyond recognition and all this stuff. I'm like, burned beyond recognition from snakes and sparklers? Where's the good stuff, man? Joe Dirt? Anybody? It wasn't a good look. I almost wish that, Tony Khan or somebody backstage could have been in their earpiece being like, mention that it wasn't a big explosion. I think it would have been a lot more helpful if Excalibur or Ross or whoever would have said, oh, thank God that wasn't that bad. Thank God it could have been so much worse. I'm glad those explosions weren't a big deal. But instead, they sold it as if these guys were blown into oblivion. And that's going to be a problem for how they choose to rectify this if they do at all. But I guess they're just going to try to continue to sell the fact that this was a real explosion. Don't know if this is really what they had planned or if something botched. It's possible that they had another explosion planned and maybe the charge didn't detonate or something. But if they went through this in rehearsal and that's what they shot off and said, that's going to be our finish, who in the world said that's good enough? How come they weren't being like, that's lame. That's not going to look very good on TV. So I'm not sure. I'm curious to hear the story on this later on tomorrow or this week or whenever, if it gets released. If this turns out to be some sort of a botch, if it was supposed to be a more elaborate display than that, or if that's what they had planned all along. Either way, it wasn't a good look. I ain't gonna lie. That's for sure. But the story was still there. The match between Omega and Moxley was good because Omega got that victory back from their big, brutal brawl that they had a year or so ago. That bloody ordeal, that ass bag Chris Cruz got his little pink little bitch panties in a wad about. So they really came full circle here. Omega got his win back in a brutal match, just like the one that they had before. He retains the title. You tie in the little deal with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley, their relationship, their history, their friendship and whatnot at the end. All of that was pulled off, I think, to perfection, except the special effects. So maybe, you know, these magical matches aren't ones we need to have. You know, when you put together a match like this, it has to go right. You're live, pal. You know, you can't, it ain't the street fight from earlier, you know, where you can edit it and stuff. So that was probably, you know, that killed it. That killed it at the end. It took what was a good match, what was a good finish, and a good story at the end with Eddie and Mox, and, you know, just kind of ruined it a bit for us, I think, with the finish there. But, you know, it is what it is. Company's not perfect. Wrestling is not perfect. Mistakes happen. We've seen far worse and dumber things on WWE than what they did here. But I just kind of wish it would have been pulled off better, because whenever two guys go out there and really give it their all, and they really sacrifice their body, their blood, their careers, or at least the length of their careers, and they go through all of that, and none of that is going to be remembered. The only thing we're going to remember about this is that silly little lame-ass finish. It sucks. You know, they put their bodies through hell. For what? For all the fans to be talking about the sparklers that went off at the end of the match? That's a shame. That's on AEW, because Moxley and Omega didn't deserve that at all. So, yeah, not good there at the end. But overall, we went through the letter grades, the A, B, C, or D, or the 1 through 10s earlier on. Many people are still giving this show a B. I'm giving it a solid B. Not a B+, not a B-, just a B. Very good show, worth my $50. I do not regret spending $50 on this pay-per-view. I used to do this a lot back in the day. Pay-per-views were a regular deal. I'd be buying those things monthly. It wasn't like it is now. So every few months, slapping down $50 to watch an AEW show. This will not stop me from doing it again at all. I'll order every single one. You know, until they get as shitty as Impact, they'll get my money, because of all of the AEW pay-per-views that I've ordered since they started. I've been entertained by all of them. They haven't all been great, but they've all been good. And they've all provided me with some really fun wrestling and an alternative product than what we see 3 fucking days a week in WWE. And that's, as wrestling fans, what we should all want, you know? So, anywho, that's what I think of that. And there it is. That is your AEW Revolution review in a nutshell there. Give me your thoughts. Let me know. We'll hang out here, answer some questions, see what else you guys have, or what kind of ideas you guys have for the future. Yeah, the Funko-Nita explosion was good a lot. I mean, those are all much better, you know, done. And especially some of the big explosions, you know, the wide shot of the whole ring blowing up, you know, it's been done well before. So I don't know why they didn't take any instructions or some ideas from how they did it. But like I said, unless something, unless a rigging was wrong, unless there was some sort of a botch there at the end, in that case, then, you know, that's on the production crew or the rigging guys or whoever. I don't know. Oh man, I can't wait to watch that. A couple of you guys have said that, Mike Witt, that Jon Moxley cut a post-match promo. Apparently it was funny. Maybe he poked fun at the little explosion. And knowing AEW, they'll probably poke fun at them themselves. I wouldn't be surprised. Aaron Maloney is saying that Khan was already rectifying it in his post-media scrum. What did he say? Anybody know? The main event scene gets so damn convoluted that it borders along goofy. I don't think the main event scene right now is convoluted. It's pretty cut and dry. It's Moxley and Omega. There's not a million different pieces. The WWE's main event scenes are what's fucking, they're the ones always doing the fucking 4-ways. And we're going to do 6 triple threat matches. And then the winner of these 6 triple threat matches are going to be in a fucking battle royal. And the last 2 guys in the battle royal are going to face in a best of 7 series. And then whoever comes out of that gets the title shot at the pay-per-view. That's convoluted. That's what you see from Vince. This is just a straight up feud here. Kenny Omega's got some backup with the Good Brothers, and, he's got a manager, and they've had their feud has spanned a couple of months here. He beat Moxley for the title. This is the rematch and the blow off, and now Kenny is going to go on and do something else. I don't think that's convoluted at all. I don't really think that's the definition of convoluted. I think it's non-voluted. I don't know if that's a word. It might be. Yeah, I agree with you, Higgs. The ladder match, I was expecting more. I didn't hate the ladder match, but it was sluggish. And ladder matches, we always see this. We complain about this all the time, but it really sucks when these guys are there. There was 3 or 4 different times that motherfuckers had their hand with nobody around. Not only did they not have anybody around them, but they were also on the top of the ladder with their hands on that damn brass tire, and they still weren't able to get it off there. Somebody stopped them. It's just like how the wrestlers climb so slow up the ladder and stuff. So sluggish is a pretty good word for it. I agree with you there. And I really wasn't expecting Scorpio to win it. And he did. So that wasn't my favorite match on the show, but I did love the women's title match. What I liked the most about that is I started not liking it. I said out loud, I'm like, this is not for me. When she was doing the mime thing and the tug of war thing, and, Mizunami was doing that. And the spot, go back and watch the match, that spot earlier on in the match in the corner, when she had Sheeta in the corner and she's slapping her, it was literally just had her put it in the corner and she was just going like this to her chest. Like, it was like not even any strength behind it. It looked so bad and it looked fake. And I don't like to see that. And it was just like, oh my God. But then it picked up. Then business literally picked up, to steal a line from JR. And those women beat the shit out of each other. And that scary spot on the stage was pretty gnarly. And in the end, Sheeta got over that hump with never defeating her before, and then got the victory there. And we all love Sheeta. She's had a long run, 280 some days as a women's champion. And that's probably who I would put over there. And that was a good eliminator tournament. It showcased a lot of new women, and, got Ryu Mizunami over pretty well, even despite the loss here. So I did like it. I liked more than I didn't like on the show. That's for sure. Getting tired of the Good Brothers in every Kenny match. I mean, well, what's the difference between the Good Brothers in every Kenny match and Jey Uso in every Roman Reigns match? What's really the difference there? There isn't one. It's the same thing. Same exact fucking thing. Scorpio was your pick. Good for you. That was a good pick. I like Scorpio's new attitude. I just really, really wanted to see Penta against Darby. That would have just been so fun on Wednesday for them just to give us that match. And for Darby to retain and just, have this kick-ass match with Penta. I wanted to see that. Not that he can't have a good match with Scorpio. I'm sure he will. I just wanted to see Penta. I don't know, Mike. That's a good question, too. When are we going to get Good Brothers versus the Bucks feud? And if that's going to be a champion versus champion type of deal, that would be good. I'd be into that. I'm really I like Pac and Phoenix, though, as a team, too. And if Pac and Phoenix get the shots, I'm kind of going to be rooting for them. But the better story there, you might be right, the better story there might be with the Good Brothers. So maybe they retain the title. But when Pac and Phoenix get the shot, I'm not going to predict them to win, but I'm going to fucking root for them to win. That's for sure. That's faux show. Oh, yeah, Bashan Taw. Remind me of that. What am I missing? What am I forgetting? We still don't know who attacked Moxley last December. What match was that in? That rings a bell, but it's been deleted from my cannabis memory. I forgot. Let me know. Yeah, I know they've wrestled before, Penta and Darby. That's why I wanted to see it again. And plus now with a title on the line. I don't know, Kevin Daly. I don't know what I expect from... Oh, I was thinking you meant Brian Cage. I'm assuming you mean Christian Cage in AEW. Do you see him as a main event guy or a future world title shot? I don't know. I assume they probably will bill him as a main eventer. They made a big deal. Hall of Fame caliber, one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers, best worker in the business, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think he'll be near the top of the card, but I don't know if I'd hotshot that. I wouldn't, I don't want to bring him in and immediately put him with Omega, because if you do that, what do you do with him after that? And I mean, unless he's winning the title, because TNA did that with him, didn't they? If I remember right, as soon as he came in, right off the bat, he wrestled Jeff Jarrett and beat him for the title. And I was just like, that's probably why he went over there. Oh, we'll give you the title as soon as you walk in the door, because TNA always had a rock hard, mega huge, raging erection for anybody that used to work in WWE. Didn't matter. Bring him in, we'll pay you, we'll give you titles, and we'll shove everybody else to the wayside. And that was part of their problem. That was part of the reason why the company didn't succeed greater than it did, is because they really viewed WWE talent as bigger than the talent they had there. Great talent, with like Bobby Roode and AJ Styles and those guys. And, it felt like they took a back seat to whenever they brought one of these big signees in. And I don't think AEW is really doing that. There's plenty of WWE guys there in the company now that aren't doing a whole lot. Miro ain't doing jack shit. This is a guy that rode a tank into WrestleMania and faced John Cena. And he's just there playing video games with Kip. So it's not like they're not doing what TNA does, where they're putting everybody that used to come into WWE and immediately giving them titles. You need some big names there. You needed Jericho to help get the ball rolling. You needed him to carry the title and be the face of the company for a while, because he is a big, huge Hall of Fame type of name that's got years and years, and everybody knows who Chris Jericho is. Moxley's the same way. Moxley's got that WWE experience, multi-time former world champion. Lots of experience working on the big stage. Another good guy to have carry the title, and then transition into your more AEW-ish type of guys, like your Kenny Omegas, like your Hangman Page, which I'm expecting later on. But now with Christian there, that could throw a big monkey wrench into whatever, maybe plans they had. So we'll see. I think maybe at first, Christian is, I forget what how the wording is exactly. What is the phrase? Best worker. What does he fucking say? Can't outwork me, something like that. So whatever the fuck it is, people are going to come out and challenge that. Sammy Guevara did as much tonight on Twitter. So maybe that's the beginning of it. Christian comes out on Dynamite Wednesday night, whenever, cuts his first initial promo. He's going to be then interrupted by someone that will lead to Christian's first match. He'll win that match, and then he'll continue rolling. I just think that I don't want to see them do what TNA did, to where at All Out, this guy's getting a title shot against Kenny Omega. I wouldn't do that, but they might. Really don't know. Be interesting to see, how Christian looks in there. We saw him at the Royal Rumble. He looked great shape, and he's got himself back in ring shape. He has been medically cleared, and apparently he's signed a long-term deal. What does long-term deal mean? 5? I would assume anybody coming in somebody his age would be doing 3. But he might have signed a 5-year deal. I don't know. Hopefully after he's done, much like Big Show, he can maybe turn back up to his old home and go into the Hall of Fame like he deserves. Maybe at WrestleMania 44, we'll see Christian going into the Hall. TNA's biggest problem wasn't the booking; it was the business. It was a little bit of both. Can y'all see me? I'm getting a text from my girlfriend saying my camera might be out, but I can see myself here and I can see myself there. We're all good, right? I think I'm good, honey, but thank you. I hope I'm not screwing up. Anyway. But some of the stuff that they did was bad, because they were so reactionary to everything WWE did, especially with the wrestlers that they would bring in and stuff. And I thought guys like AJ suffered. I think if they would have treated AJ like the Hall of Famer he might not have left. He might not have had the problems and the falling out there that he did. And I think they were just so concerned with reacting and hanging on every word of WWE made. They were like little lovesick puppies, just followed him around, reacted to him. Everything they did was all about WWE and trying to make themselves a version of WWE instead of being an alternative to WWE, which is what I believe AEW is doing. There's lots of things about AEW that TNA never did, and it really gives them that alternative feel. Case in point, main event of tonight's show. WWE ain't gonna be blowing up anybody in their PG rings. It's not happening. So things like that you can get in AEW that you can't get in the other company is I think something that AEW does better. And even with like the little tiny subtle things that they do. One thing I like that AEW does is they announce who the referee is. before every match. Could you imagine WWE doing that? Even back in the day when WWE didn't pretend that referees were just robots, they, and they actually gave, they said their names, Mike Chioda and Timmy White and Jimmy Corderas and Jack Doan and Earl Hebner and I don't know who the fuck else. And all those guys, they would at least acknowledge who the referees were. But now referees are just nameless stripes. It's gotten to the point now where it's worked. It's worked on me. Because whenever I watch a WWE match, I completely filter out the referee. I can watch a match, an hour-long Iron Man match, and at the end of it, I can't tell you who the referee was because I never paid attention. And that sucks because referees should be a little bit bigger of a deal, and it adds an element of realism to it. When, after Justin Roberts announces the participants and he goes, your official for this match is Aubrey Edwards. Kevin Dunn would think that's stupid because Kevin Dunn's an idiot. And it's like little things like that they do that, that I think sets them apart a bit from WWE, especially with the win-loss stuff. For a casual fan, win-losses are important. If you're just kind of casually watching AEW and you see somebody that is like 8-1 or 20-1 or something like that, it's, you're gonna remember that and recognize that. So there's a lot that AEW does that I think gives them that more of an alternative feel, where they don't seem like a second-rate WWE. And TNA knew how to do that for a little while, where the six-sided ring and the great matches they would have with AJ and Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle came in, and they were doing things that were different. I think six-sided rings are stupid, but at least it's something different. You don't see that on the other show. They booked their show a little bit differently, but then it slowly started morphing into that. And as soon as they brought in Hogan and Bischoff, then it became just a minor league WWE with washed-up wrestlers or disgruntled guys that came in and started working. And then everything they did, their video packages, their intros, their pyro, the screen, the stage setup, every single thing they did was just another version of what we already see in WWE. And a lot of it is a lot of the same wrestlers too. Where in AEW, I don't get that feeling as much. They feel like they have their own identity. They don't feel like I can't tell the difference, but I can tell the difference between the two companies. Even though Jim Ross is there and there's some WWE influence there, they don't seem like a carbon copy of it. And near the end of TNA, that's exactly what they seemed like, to me anyway, was that they were just trying to compete in a way that they couldn't compete. Give us, all of us, something that we cannot see with Vince. And when you do that, you're going to find success. And I think back TNA, I like AEW so much more than TNA. I just never got into it. And plus I don't like I didn't like it in WCW either. I hated when they would do the Universal Studio shows where they do the soundstage and they'd put fans in there. And a lot of the fans weren't even wrestling fans because it was just like basically going on a ride. And you can just be let in. They just put anybody in there to watch the wrestling matches. They weren't real wrestling fans. And, so when they did it at Disney like that, I'm like, I don't like that atmosphere. I've never liked the soundstage. I hated the WCW soundstage and the rotating ring. I thought that was so dumb. And the fans were only on one side. We see that now. WWE only has the Thunderdome filled in there. The hardcam side isn't Thunderdomed up. But that's the way the production was in WCW back in the day. I thought it looked so cheesy. It looked dumb. It looked like 14 people were in the audience, and they were just sitting there, and they were kind of mildly enthusiastic and stuff. And I just didn't like, the Impact Zone. I didn't like the environment. I like Daly's place better. I get more energy out of the fans. It feels like more of an arena show than what they did at the soundstage there at Universal and stuff. So. Not trying to shit on TNA, but just very little of what they did aside from some of the matches in the ring. Give me AJ matches and Samoa Joe matches and Kurt Angle matches from TNA all day long. I'll watch those until the world ends. But everything else they did, I just thought sucked. Just fucking sucked. So you've made me review a couple of pay-per-views before, right, Barry? And they were good. Some of those were good. I think they always came through on pay-per-view. Much like AEW here, they would spill a lot of blood. Abyss and guys like that would just beat the tar out of each other on TNA, and that stuff was good. So they did do some stuff right, but not everything. Excuse me. Let me cruise over, knock out a couple more chats that are super. 5 more from Zane G. Appreciate that, man. If Christian ever does a family and friends crossing the line type of storyline, would Edge somewhat be involved? Crossing the line. What do you mean? Like in cross promotion? Probably not. WWE ain't into that. They're not going to be letting Edge go there. Edge is going to have to be out of WWE contractual obligations to do anything with Christian in some sort of storyline like that. So based on the way WWE is, no. If Edge worked for Impact, then yeah. Or New Japan or something like that, maybe. But definitely not with WWE. That's never going to happen. Super Fluffy. Toaster. Thanks for 5 more from you as well. I know I'll be waiting because it's Mania season, but just donated 75 for the live stream. Going to pick Scott Hall career vid. Okay. I can do it right after Mania. Okay, I'll check my emails. I'm sure I'll see that in here later. We'll schedule that for us for a Sunday in April. We'll do it on a non pay-per-view Sunday in April. Nail down a date for that soon. That'll be fun. Talk about Scott Hall. I was just thinking about Scott Hall today or yesterday. Why was I thinking about him? Oh, it was because of Big Show. When Big Show said, like when he was like, I'm going to have all the scoops. And I immediately thought of Razor Ramon. Hey, yo, have I got a scoop for you? Or maybe he said that as Scott Hall in WCW. I forgot, but immediately made me think of Scott Hall. I am into that. That would be fun. Oh, and I also watched, I don't know how we didn't catch this back in December, but last night we watched the Goldberg Streak Untold on the WWE Network. It came out in December. I never saw it or even noticed it was out. And Scott Hall was a big part of that. They talked a lot about him in that as well. Cool. Thank you for that, Super Fluffy. I'll look at that, and we'll be knocking that out as a fun Sunday night stream one night in April. Appreciate that, my friend. Yeah, Mike Witt, I thought about Samoa Joe being who the big surprise could be, but he's on commentary right now. Like that one, there's no way they'd have him out there doing commentary with no contract. So I knew it really couldn't be Samoa Joe, but would have been cool. No, no, Raymond, they're not. This is a common misconception about cynical aspects. Sting, yes, Sting is 61, Big Show's 49. It is not just scrap heap. It's not just those guys are there and have roles, but they're not the top featured dudes. You know, there's nothing wrong with having these guys there, you know, sprinkled in with the current talent that they have. It's the matter of how that's balanced out. TNA, I always thought was guilty of making the WWE guys bigger than their own guys. And I do not see that in TNA or in AEW at all. Look at what Jericho's done since he's been there. Look at the guys he's worked with. Look at the guys he's tag teamed with. Everybody he's worked with has been a younger talent or an AEW talent or an indie talent or somebody that he is trying to elevate, whether it be teaming with him, feuding with him, whatever. These guys can be there to do that. We haven't even seen what Paul White's going to do yet. He's going to be a commentator on Mondays. Paul White is a charismatic guy. Paul White is fun. I think he's going to be great in that role. If he's out there on Dynamite this week pinning Kenny Omega after a choke slam after a 5-second match and winning the AEW title, then Raymond, you got a point. But if he's just there as a part of the company, there is nothing wrong with that. Fans have no clue about the history of the business. They are fucking clueless to what has always happened throughout the history of the business, the NWA, AWA, WWF. WWF, I got news for you, Raymond, because I know you're not old enough to know this, but WWF was nothing but AEW rejects in 83 and 84. Because who came in? Hogan, Jesse, Gene, Iron Sheik. Everybody just left AEW in droves. Tito Santana, Wendy Richter, Jim Brunzell. The list goes on and on and on and on. This has been going on in wrestling since the beginning of time. And most fans like you probably started watching wrestling in 2008 and have no damn idea about what real history of the business is. So shut the fuck up. That's wrong. And anybody who thinks that is wrong. You're just wrong. Oh yeah, K-Dogs. It's 75 for a live stream, 150 for a full-on edited type of review. Sorry, don't mean to pick on your Raymond, but it's like this type of shit that you always see. Think before you spout out these opinions that make no sense. Think them through. Don't just repeat what Jim Cornette says. Just don't repeat what people who hate AEW says. Think for yourself. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. Having critical thought is something that's very absent from the pro wrestling fan base. That's for damn sure. Yeah, look at what David Higgs says. Jericho lost to Moxley, lost in the Stadium Scramble. I forgot about the Stadium Scramble. Lost to Orange Cassidy and MJF. Now the Young Bucks. He puts motherfuckers over. And when you can have guys like there to give rubs, that's a good thing. When you have guys there coming in to take over, boy, I'll tell you another thing, Raymond, you would have hated fucking 1996 WCW. Did you love the NWO? You probably did. What was the NWO? WWE rejects, WWE scrap heap. Hulk Hogan, hadn't been around in a couple of years, is already old, was already being called a dinosaur before he even formed the NWO. And here he is with Hall and Nash and Mr. Perfect and Virgil and everybody else that was in WWE that came over there. That whole goddamn faction was a WWE scrap heap. And it was the most over thing in wrestling. Think. Use your brain. Ugh. Yeah, I'm not roasting Raymond. I'm roasting people like Raymond because there's lots of them. But yeah, AWA was like that, dude. Everybody came over there. Then WCW. So WWE stole everybody from AWA and all the other territories. When Vince was going through like a cutthroat businessman and just taking everybody, and he really hit AWA, the hardest. He hit AWA with so much there, and then took a little bit from everybody else too. And then WCW, when Ted Turner bought it, did the same thing. Hogan, Savage, Bossman, Duggan, Earthquake, One Man Gang, Jimmy Hart, Elizabeth. I mean, it just on and on and on and on. This is nothing new. And I don't think, based on everything that I've seen throughout the years with the AWA stuff and WWE and WCW and NWA, TNA, all the way up until now, AEW is one of the least offenders of this. At least when they're bringing guys in, they're not, just showcasing them as, oh, we just stole all these stars and we're not going to make any of our own. That was what happened to WCW. They just used these older stars, never created any, where WWE's down south putting together Edge and Christian and Kane. And, they had Undertaker. Stone Cold Steve Austin gets on the map, and they're able to create characters and stories for each and every one of those guys. Fans get behind them, learn about them, get emotionally invested in their stories and their matches and what they do. And it eventually was able to take over the washed up has-beens in WCW. So it's got to be a mix. And you have that in AEW. You've got a great mix. Look at the card tonight. There's a lot of guys on the show that have never been in WWE before. Matt and Nick Jackson, MJF, whole bunch of people in that tag team battle royal. Jesus, man. Half the damn Butcher and Blade and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy and Ray Phoenix and then Bear Country and the Guns, the Seidel brothers, all the Dark Order guys. Well, Matt was kind of there. Private Party, Hikaru Shida, Ryo Mizunami, Kip Sabian, Chuck Taylor, Orange Cassidy, Hangman Page, Darby Allin, Brian Cage, Max Caster, Ethan Page, Lance Archer, Scorpio Sky, Ricky Starks, Kenny Omega. Doesn't seem like a WWE scrap heap to me. It seems like the opposite of that. Yeah, I'm thinking about that, Mike. So I'm going to do, we're going to do a watch along next Sunday. I'm going to tell you guys which WrestleMania I'm going to do tomorrow. So join us tomorrow after Raw for the Raw review. And I'm going to let you guys know what I'm going to do next Sunday, but we're definitely going to watch a classic WrestleMania. It's more of a more recent one than WrestleMania 4, but I would like to do WrestleMania 4. We had a great turnout for WrestleMania 17. I'm not sure how good the turnout would be for WrestleMania 4. That's my only concern there, because not many people are old pieces of shit like me. So I think, I don't know if people will be that interested in it, but we're going to do a lot more of these leading up to WrestleMania this year. So WrestleMania 4 could be an idea of one to do. I'd love to. That was the very first, really the very first pay-per-view I ever ordered on from a cable company was WrestleMania 4. I have a lot of fond memories of it. I've told the story before of my WrestleMania 4 experience and where I watched it, where I was, and all that stuff. And I was just a young 12-year-old kid, a little snot-nosed punk watching WrestleMania 4, but I was very happy to watch Randy Savage win that title. And Elizabeth, my God, she looked great that night. I thought it was so cool how him and Elizabeth came out in all the 4 matches, color coordinated in their outfits. Elizabeth with a different evening gown every time to match Randy's robe. Looked great. They look great together. Great finish at the end. You didn't see baby faces cheating, to win pay-per-view main events in the 80s. You hardly see it now. So, I mean, I remember thinking that was crazy. Right, he cheated to win, a good guy. Can't believe it. Hogan is sneaky little fucker that he is, helped Randy win. So I might do one for WrestleMania 19. That's a good one. That would be a fun one to do because there were so many good matches on that. Jericho and Shawn, and of course Austin's last match, Brock almost killing himself. Even Hogan and Vince was good, and I didn't think it would be. That might be one. I'm gonna put that one on the list. I wasn't sure if that was. I'm not sure if that was too close to WrestleMania 17 because it was only 2 years later. So I don't know. Oh, okay, Kate Always Kendall, that works. I'll keep a lookout for that 1 year anniversary, huh? Oh yeah, a lot of guys were. Tomfoolery. Yeah, MJF was in the background, and I just saw somebody else recently, and I forget who it was. I literally just saw this days ago. Somebody else that I didn't know was an extra in WWE before, and now I completely forgot who it was. But I was like, oh, look at that. Damn, who was that? It's gonna drive me crazy now. But I literally just saw this on somewhere this week, and now I cannot remember. The MJF, he was used as some extra somewhere, and a lot of guys were. A lot of guys have been passed through, WWE or been there or whatever. At least once, used for something, used for some reason. Thanks, Barry. How'd I like Vanna White on WrestleMania 4? Not as well as Bob Uecker. Bob Uecker was obsessed with Vanna White. He was trying to find her all night long. That was pretty funny. And Jesse Ventura was like, oh, she's hanging out with me later. That's why she's not going to be with Bob. Bob Uecker was one of the funniest guests in WrestleMania history because he did 2 back-to-back years there. He was at 3, chasing around Moolah for some reason. And then the next year, he upped his game a little bit and decided to aim a little higher. With a little upgrade there on Vanna White, and was never able to get to her until the very end. I think they were in the ring together prior to the main event. And yeah, Vanna was hot stuff back in the day. Still is. Zane G, appreciate the $5 from you. Would you say if someone like Heyman ever joins AEW, would WWE lose somewhat of a last mouthpiece? Yeah, they would. I mean, that's the thing. If Heyman were to go over there, AEW would have all the good guys. And it's kind of a shame that Heyman is stuck because I think he'd be great in AEW. But I think he's probably going to be with WWE. I don't think they want to lose him. He's kind of like Flair, or I feel like they're just going to keep him around. They'll pay him. Paul's business too. Paul's all about money. So he's going to go with who pays him more. And he's got a pretty good gig in WWE, That's why I want, we talked a little bit about this last week. Oh, was it Ricky? Might have been Ricky, Jane. You might be right. We talked about this last week that I really like MVP with Bobby Lashley. And that seemed to, because the Leo Rush stuff didn't stick, and it seemed like a really good pairing. And MVP is good on the mic. He comes across as that Paul Heyman type of businessman. And he's got that kind of attitude, and he's a really good talker, and he's really good at hyping up matches because Bobby Lashley isn't so great on the mic. And not that MVP, really needs to be a full-blown mouthpiece for him or anything. Lashley can talk a little, just like Brock did. He's a good representation for Lashley. The guy that's going to make the deals, sign the contracts, manage the career, that kind of thing. Occasionally get in the ring. That's something Paul Heyman can't do, and occasionally get physical. And if I'm Roman Reigns, I'd rather have MVP in my corner than Paul Heyman. What can Paul Heyman do other than run away screaming? MVP is a guy with some toughness to him. He knows fucking Taekwondo and Judo and shit. He can whip anybody's ass, even at his age. So to have him out there on the outside of the ring, not only does he give you the promo ability, but he gives you a real threat, in your matches, and can potentially help Bobby Lashley hang on to that title longer. So I think the pairing between those two guys is excellent, and we need more of them. We need more of these like Paul Heyman type of, if WWE isn't going to do full-blown managers anymore, like advocates and businessmen or business managers, shit like that. So I like that they're doing that with MVP. Damn, Mike 44, you and Bobby Lashley are the same age. We all are, man. Grew up in AWA, WCCW, and Crockett. I never got to see WCCW, but I did get to see AWA when I was a kid. We got some programming where I lived for that, and then I moved down to the Carolinas in the 80s and the late 80s, and was able to catch a lot of Crockett down there. We talked a lot about the passing of Jimmy Crockett yesterday in the podcast. If you want to hear that, just go over to my channel and check out the podcast from yesterday. Gave a little tribute to him, talked a little bit about the history of him and Jim Crockett Promotions and all of that. And they did I should have mentioned that earlier. They did a nice Jimmy Crockett Jr. graphic tonight prior to Revolution, which I thought was cool. So nice little touch there. Curtis, yeah, we could have been classmates. Me, you, and MVP in school together. We would have been cutting up. Oh man, we would have formed our own little faction. MVP would be the leader. Me and you'd have to be the tag team. Would The Rock be better for promo and popularity for Roman Reigns? You mean like back like in a Heyman role? Rock's not going to do that. Yeah, of course he might be. I don't even think he'd be better. No, he wouldn't. Not in that role, because Rock's silly. Rock is all about pie and fucking all those silly nursery rhymes and shit. You don't need that. Roman Reigns is a serious fighter, and you have Paul Heyman, who's already backed up, serious fighters before. He can get things over. Paul Heyman does not go out there and tell nursery rhymes. Paul Heyman gets to the fucking point. And even though Rock is great on the mic, and Rock is a huge movie star and bring a lot of eyeballs to WWE in terms of him being like the mouthpiece for Roman, no, that would be he'd outshine Roman. Rock's still in really good shape. Rock's still the Rock. You don't want to overshadow your champion. He's got to remain bigger than the person that's advocating for him. So I don't think Rock would be good in that role at all. All right, Zane, take care, man. See you tomorrow for the live stream. I'm about to get out of here soon too, because I have to eat some food. We'll probably just do that now. Sure, Aaron, you can hit me up DM. I check them every 2 months. I'm kidding. Yeah, hit me up with a DM. I'll be able to see it if you do that. Yeah, imagine paying The Rock every week just to do promos for Roman. That ain't going to work. There's no way. And plus, I don't think it would really do Roman that many favors. Paul Heyman does an excellent job of selling matches, selling stories. We've seen that as much of that on like Talking Smack and shit like that when he's got these little sit-down one-on-ones with these guys, helping to bring them out, bring a little more emotion out of them and stuff. So, what he does, nobody can do, not even The Rock, in terms of what he can offer from a wrestling standpoint, just from a celebrity and, standpoint, Hall of Famer coming in, Rock, he probably needs to wrestle. So hopefully next year, or no, 2 years from now, WrestleMania 39 here in LA, it'll be Rock and Roman. I kind of hope it is. Is Paul Heyman shining more than Roman by being his mouthpiece? No, Heyman's just Heyman. Heyman's doing nothing different with Roman than he did with Brock. The same. No, I don't think he's overshining Roman at all. Roman's work is fantastic, and for all the people that Heyman has managed or advocated for, Roman's the best talker of all of them. Man, he's good. He doesn't even need Heyman. He is so spectacular on the mic with his ego and shit, and the way he talks and his his slow, kind of deliberate tone, and how he's very Godfather-ish, and I like that about Roman. So Heyman is a good person there to sell the matches, but Roman holds his own as well on the mic, and boy, has the writing come a long way from Sucker and Succotash, or whatever they had him say that one time, compared to now. They both do a great job. Yes, comedic genius. I will be live tomorrow night, immediately following Raw. And that's going to wrap it up for me here. I think we've been streaming now for about 2 hours. Thank you very much to everybody that has hung out tonight and stayed with me for this review. If there is anybody here who has not hit that like button yet, please do that. I would really, really appreciate it. But I understand that you guys have a lot of choices on YouTube after a big pay-per-view like this. So for you to spend your time with me, I appreciate you. Just want to let you know that. Be sure you join us tomorrow night, immediately following Raw. 1:15 the hour after Raw goes off the air. We'll be up here for a full show review. We should have a lot to talk about in terms of Bobby Lashley and him being the new champion, and maybe what he's going to do at Fastlane if they set anything like that up here, or if they just go with Roman and Bryan at Fastlane and they don't do a Lashley match. But I have my doubts about that. I think we'll get a Lashley match as well. So we'll find out if that's against The Miz or Drew McIntyre or James Ellsworth. We'll find all that out hopefully tomorrow night, and we'll get to see a pretty sweet ass celebration with that sexy ass Hurt Business in the ring with the MVP in the middle of all of these champions. That's going to be cool. So join us tomorrow night after the show, and we'll be up here talking about it again. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.